Hello, Widowhood. Our guest today is Miss Gwen Wright. I met her on TikTok, and instantly I knew that her conversation would add so much value to the widowhood. I am so grateful for her accepting the invitation. The conversation today, especially the day that we're recording, how important it is to her. Let's get into this conversation, and I want to hear from you. Please message me, email me at widowhoodrealtalk@gmail.com of how you felt about this conversation. Let's get into it now.
Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hello, Gwen Wright, and welcome to the Widowhood.
Hello. Hi, Tina. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. Technically, you've already been part of the widowhood. The widowhood. I'm gonna start all over. I just did that bad. Sorry, podcast and editing team. I am just not good today. Sorry. Hello, Gwen Wright, and welcome to the Widowhood.
Hi, Tina. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Yeah, really, I appreciate it. This is going to be a good opportunity.
I am grateful to have you here. You have already been part of the Widowhood. Now you're part of this particular podcast conversation is how we got here. And yes, for the world to know, I did stalk her low key, high key on TikTok, just watching her share her journey. And I wanted to be able to highlight her journey and just share how wonderful Gwen is with the world.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for those words. I appreciate that. Today is the 5-year marking of Doug not officially passing away because he was on life support for 3 days. So Friday will actually be the day, that we officially recognize his passing. But today marks the 5-year of where he went down on our kitchen floor. And so I just say it's the day that our life completely changed. And obviously that's what happens, when you become a widow. I'm meant to be here today talking about this. That's how I feel. This is just going to be a extremely wonderful way to honor him and, to continue to just honor him. So,
and I want to say today we're recording the podcast on January 24th. So that day is very important for Gwen, but the day will be different. But just so as people are listening, they'll be able to know what that day is. So let's back up a little bit in your life. Who is Doug? How did you meet? I want all of that too.
Okay, well, Doug and I both grew up in a little town here in Wisconsin, and I actually went to high school at the neighboring school. And I've known him since, I think before I even had a driver's license, probably around that time, 16 years old or so. And I was dating this different boy, and there used to be this arcade here, like a place where you go play pool and had all the old arcade games, pizza joint, all of that kind of stuff. And so my boyfriend at the time from when I was in high school, he just kind of introduced me to this, all of these people in Osceola. And I just started hanging out more and more. Anyways, we eventually broke up, and I still just came to town. And there was this boy who kept coming around and coming around, right? Coming around. And I just was like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And so we, our schools were rivals. And so when the football games would be happening, everybody would go to them. And so one time we were at a football game, and he just kind of kept circling around and just all that childish kind of stuff. And so one time we were at the arcade, and he came down the sidewalk, him and his buddies, and they threw this football, and he comes running down, to catch this long yardage football, in front of me. And I just said, is that all you got? And I walked away, right? And so the next day, we were in the arcade and we were sitting there, and a bunch of my girlfriends and stuff were there, and we were getting up and ready to leave. And he grabbed me by my wrist and spun me around and dipped me back and just planted this huge kiss on me. And that's what he was like, that's what I got. And so that's how we met. I mean, really, that's how we met. And so we dated when I was senior through high school. He had already graduated from high school. And when I was a senior, at the end time, he was like, you know what, you need to have your senior year. I don't want to tie you down. And he broke my heart, right? And so he broke my heart. And so then I, kind of went off and, did my own thing for a little bit, but he always was around like all the time and was just like a protector of mine. I mean, through other relationships, I mean, he just always came and like picked me up and just was my friend. And so eventually we got back together and we started dating, and then we moved in with each other, right? We bought a house, all of that, and got married. And then through our marriage, Tina, I got bored and we got divorced. And so
okay, hold on. Okay, pause.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even circle back enough. Hold on. Okay, senior high school, 17, 18.
Yes.
What age were you when you guys reconnected?
Probably 21. I maybe was like 21, 22 years old, around that age.
What was it? No, you're going too fast. You go too fast. Now we need to back it up a little bit. What was the transition, the catalyst? What made you reconnect with Doug at 21, 22?
I think I was in this relationship with this boy. I'm going to call him a boy. It was not a good relationship. It wasn't a good relationship at all. And I needed to leave. It was one of those relationships I needed to leave. And I thought, I don't know how to get out of this, right? I don't have an out. I don't know how to leave. And Doug just came and was like, I'm going to get you out. And so he went to this house that I was living in and just started packing. I mean, like, helped me like pack all of this stuff and got me out and moved me back to my parents. And so when we were there, I remember I wanted to take every single thing out of this house, right? Like, I was not leaving this man anything, nothing. Like, I was taking the last light bulb, from this guy.
You took the toilet paper roll.
I was like, that is it. Like, you are awful to me. I just am leaving you with nothing, right? I'm leaving you with nothing. And Doug said to me, right, like, no matter how horrible of a person he was to you, right, and how horrible of a person he still is a human being. And please leave him some toilet paper, a spoon, and like a pan, right? And so I had to like take the stuff out. And so he made me leave him like a cooking utensil and some toilet paper, right? And so I just thought, oh my gosh, right? He just knew how to human. And that was it. And so we got back together because that's right. I mean, that's a good human, right? Like, leave this person who was horrible to you. You still have to leave him something so he's able, to kind of live for a little bit when he comes home and his house is like completely emptied.
Thank you for sharing that. So
yes.
I want to make sure I'm understanding. Doug says, I'm going to give you some space, senior year of high school, and he stays being a friend. Was Doug dating people at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. Not pining over me.
That's the part I wanted to understand. No, I'm like, is Doug just being the guy friend and just waiting on the sideline? Okay. So he's doing his thing and you're doing your.
Yes. Okay. He's still doing his thing, but we're still, connecting. And like I said, we live in a small town, so you run into each other all over the place and, like, hey, what if, or, and you kind of like talk about like, that kind of stuff. Right. And then it was like, I'm involved, you're involved, we can't do this kind of stuff. So. Okay.
So when he comes to get you to move out of danger, was he dating someone at that point in time?
No. At that time he was not dating somebody. So it was the opportunity for him to like, wait, right? It was the opportunity for him to swoop in maybe. And
Okay. And
yes.
so what did
Mhm.
that look like? Okay, you moved back to your parents' house. How do you transition from you guys being friends to now making this a dating relationship?
So as we do that, right now he's coming to pick me up, take me out and stuff. And so um eventually it just kind of is like things where it just like move into I just spent more and more time over at his house, and he lived with his dad at the time. And so I just spent more and more time over there. He grew up in a single parent home, but by a dad. His dad raised him and his brothers. And so there was no mom. And I mean, he had a mom, but she was like off,
Right.
and not like fully in the picture all the time. Um, which makes relationships a little bit difficult when you're not nurtured by um, a female, right? And
It
so
does. And
when
it also makes
yes,
it makes relationships different when you have different uh upbringings, whatever
correct.
those differences are. So
Hmm.
because the dynamic of family is seen different. So that's a really good point. So what are some things or lessons learned that you saw there were differences just in as you mentioned that?
I think that moms, obviously women are like more open to sharing feelings, right? And so I just think that too, if you're, for moms with sons, just in my experience, I don't have any boys, all girls. Um, I just watch like how maybe like moms like interact with their sons, right? And sons feel comfortable around their moms, like hugging them and saying I love you openly, right? And that kind of stuff. And so Doug was a very closed. I mean,
Mm,
he was great with like humans, and I mean with like other people, um, but also was like hard for um affection, right? To be really affectionate. He was really good at taking care of me, in the sense of um I'm going to do stuff for you, right? Like I'm a hard worker, that kind of thing, right? I mean, it's like very good at that kind of stuff. But when it came to um emotionally being supportive, it was really difficult.
okay.
And difficult to have important hard conversations,
Okay.
right? Because um there was abandonment issues there, of course, right?
Okay.
And I'm sure that there was, right? And so, and then, he was raised by his dad who worked nights, right? Because he had to take care of his boys. He had to do what he had to do. And so they weren't always around. So they kind of took care of themselves, they
Okay.
grew up and, kind of raised themselves, and kind of a little bit wild. He was more of like that, yeah, wild boy, right? And so, which was very intriguing and attractive
Yes, I was going to say so.
to
And
me.
those are right. And those are characteristics that we learn. It's just literally differences. My
Mhm.
husband grew up in Pennsylvania, very close to a coal mining town, uh, very work oriented, very much of a provider and doing different things. He grew up with four, he was one of four brothers. His mom, her husband and four boys, totally different dynamics, similar sounds to like, I mean, their mother was present, but with four boys and a man, they're running that
Mhm.
home. And there's a different male energy that was in that space. Mark was not super, I would say he learned to be affectionate. He learned that type of softness that you need in a relationship with a
Yes.
woman. But I would tell him often, he would tell other people, my wife looks nice. But him opening his mouth to tell me that directly, you would have thought like somebody had stuffed a whole rock in his throat. And it got to the point
Yes.
that I realized it was bothering me. Like, why is he telling other people I look nice, but he doesn't tell me? And I was out visiting one of my cousins, and her phone said, "Hey, beautiful, you've got a text message." And I was like, you know what? I am tired of waiting for him to do something and getting mad because I like him. I can't be this big mad over this one little thing. I put that text app on my phone. And I came on and said, "Hey, beautiful, you got a new text message." He looked at me because it was a man's voice. He was like, "Whose voice is that? What is going on?" And I told him, I said, "You never tell me I'm pretty. You tell other people." You know what he started doing after that? He heard that thing. I was like, I should have been
Yeah.
got. I should have gotten that text application a long time ago.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
sometimes nobody's perfect. Nobody. I say
No.
it to say nobody is this perfect person. We all have areas where it's like we could touch up that a little bit, and we're just all human beings. And I think that's great too, because I think also when our spouses die, it's like we put them up for sainthood and canon, and it's like they were still human. Like they didn't change.
Yes.
Yes, in the trueness
Yeah.
of who they are. So thank you for
Um,
being so transparent.
Yeah, I do. I do. That really just kind of like hit there about, so through the 5 years, right? Through these 5 years, um, I do feel like uh, I have fallen in love all over again with him, right? Now that he's gone. I think that the reason is for, once he was gone, I realized like really like how important he was, right? And um how much stuff that how much he really did for me and for our girls. How much I like took him for granted. And so I just would like start talking to him like openly, right? And when, I would just start talking to him openly, and it just felt like we were having this connection only because there wasn't anything to come back, right? But I could create this connection with him. Um even though he wasn't able to like return, any of the conversation. It really is a very strange thing, but I just felt like super close. There was like this thing that just like made me feel like closer to him, um, which maybe sounds really kind of bizarre, but
It
it's helped
doesn't,
me
but
kind of,
I'm gonna back up a little bit.
yeah.
So, and I want to come back to that, and I'm making a note to that because that is something I really want to dive in to help people who are grieving. So we're going to go back to 21, 22. You're dating Doug. How do we get from there to how does the relationship evolve after from that
So
point?
we move in together, right? So this is like, so I graduated from high school in 1989. So this is like in the early, mid 90s, early 90s. Um, so I move in with him and his dad. So
Oh,
and so we are like, my girls and I are living in the house that I lived in for almost my whole life with him. Right. And
wow.
so his dad had purchased this house when they had to move here, when Doug was a freshman in high school. And so Doug graduated in 86. So they lived here, for like 1983, I think is when they moved here, 82, 83. Maybe even 1980. Anyways, so they've had this house for this long, right? And so that's where we live now. We still live there. So Doug and I, move in there, saved money because we both are working, we're young, right? We saved some money, and then we bought this little cottage house across the street from where we live, and so we still own that. And so we moved over there, and I wanted to get married. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have babies. I wanted to do all of this stuff, right? And he just was not moving along, right? He was not moving along. And I thought, I don't want to like be here and like do this and like pretend, right? Because I'm still young, right? I was young and naive on all of that, Um, thinking that that's what's supposed to happen, right? That's supposed to happen in your life. And so um it didn't happen. So eventually we did get married. And in 1997, we got married. And we were married for 3 years, I think, for 3 years. And I was so bored. I was so bored with him. Right. And all of a sudden, he became this old man. Like, really, he just became this old, like, he didn't want to go out. He didn't want to do it. And it wasn't, first I thought, gosh, are you like hitting like this depressed thing or what was the thing? He just didn't want to do any stuff, but I felt like he also wasn't maybe like wanting to do any things with me. And so, um, this is now going to be like really vulnerable. And a lot of people maybe like know this, and so I'm just kind of like, people who are maybe going to listen to this.
We're going to tell them. You don't have to tell those other people that we did the part.
Okay. I used to work in this factory, and there was this person who was my best friend growing up. He was a male. He was my best friend growing up. He took care of me all the time. Anyways, he had moved away and he had come back to the area, and I was so excited for him to come back. And so we just started talking too much, right? Okay. Too much. And I thought, oh, this could be a thing, right? And so I was not, Doug and I were not getting along. I mean, there just was like things like that. He just wasn't wanting, but also wasn't forward in like, hey, let's figure out how we can like work on this, right? And so we did go to a marriage counseling a couple times, and I just was like, I'm just done. And so we got divorced. We ended up getting a divorce, and I married Randy, and all the things that I thought about him and that I knew about him were not true. I was so shocked. And so life is really crazy, isn't it? I mean, like life is like really crazy and can throw you for some loops. And so I got pregnant, and I had twins with him. I had twins with Randy. And so we have twin daughters. I had one more relationship. I had to leave. And so I now like say this stuff out loud, and I think, boy, I really was not like a good picker of men. And so anyways, No.
Okay. So let's pause there for a moment.
Okay.
How long did you and Randy date before you?
We did not really date. I mean, really like maybe 6 months. Now, this is a boy that I knew since I was 13 years old, and I grew up with, and he would every day. Like, I mean, I talked to him like he was my best friend. And so, super great. He was so, oh my gosh, charismatic and fun, and like great conversationalist, and knew every single thing about me. And I mean, even now I could like run into him in the grocery store here, and which is so crazy because has nothing to do with us, right? But I could stand in the grocery store and I could probably talk to him for 2 hours because it's just so weird. It's just weird. Anyways, I don't do that, but I'm just saying that's
no. Like, it's a relationship stuff. So what did you learn that made Doug a good partner compared to other people you had connected with?
He truly wanted to protect me. I mean, like he truly, right? Like respect, and like never in our whole being did Doug ever call me like any kind of name. I mean, like he truly wanted to genuinely just take care of us and take care of me, right? And so I mean, and even like looking back on that now, I mean, I know that's the truth, right? That's the truth about the whole thing. And I was young and I didn't see all of that, right?
And that's the part when we're young. I mean, hindsight is fabulous. And those nuggets that we learn, I can see how it makes that we cherish people more than we did before. Sometimes it takes some bumps in the road to really appreciate the simplicity of just being simple or not wanting to do anything else. We don't get that when we're young, but when we get older, when you have the peace to be in the house with someone and there's no drama and no issues, you value that as we live a little bit longer. So I could see how younger Gwen had no concept of that. That's something you learn over time.
Yes. And so I left with my twin daughters. Now, my sister is married to Doug's brother.
You did not bring that up. Okay, you just slid that in there. Okay, go ahead. Okay, you got me in here like, I'm like.
Yes, so my sister is married to Doug's brother. So our family is not ever been like separated, right? And so Christmases we're always together. I mean, like all of the things, right? Like I never had like a different like in-laws to go to, and you know, same with her. And so my niece, this is how Doug and I got back together after we were divorced and stuff. So my niece was turning a year old, and I really wanted to go to the birthday party, right? And so now I have my daughters, and so they're already a year. So they're 6 months apart. Okay. So my twins are 6 months older than my niece. Okay. And so my niece is turning 1, and I really wanted to go to the birthday party, but I didn't know if Doug was going to be there. Okay. And so Doug wanted to go to the birthday party also, but we were so, right this time we were not like really like good in our, in this situation. Right. And so I asked my sister if she thought it would be okay. She contacted Doug, and Doug said, absolutely, we can go and we can be in the same place together. Right. And so, we went to the birthday party, and when we were leaving and I was packing up my girls and getting all the stuff ready, he just came over and just started packing the diaper bag and like carried one of my girls out in the car seat and got them in the car. And then he said, it's now time for us to really have a serious conversation. And so we met at this park that we have, and we probably had the best conversation that we have ever had in our whole entire life, right? We was the best conversation just about everything, right? Like everything that happened to us from when we were younger and what we wanted and how we wanted this to be and all of this kind of stuff, right? And so I was like, this is what I've been waiting for, right? This is what I've been waiting for with you. I just felt like that was like this is a realization for me just right at the moment, Tina, because today I was driving down the road and I was like, gosh, I just wonder if I'm going to have this like moments of like really great love, right? Like in the rest of my parts of my life here. And right now, when I'm just like recanting this story, recalling it, that was a moment of like really great love that I forgot about. That moment that I forgot that happened. And so we were there, and it just was like, we were sitting on this picnic table, and I remember he just was like behind me, and the river and the lake, and so the sunset, oh my gosh, it was glorious. And so super great connection. And I remember I just like kissed him, and it probably was like one of the best kisses that I've ever, like, gosh, I can't even believe I forgot all about it. Oh my gosh, this was great. And so we go, and I'm all like, okay, this is it. We're going to be back together, and this is going to be good. I see him driving down the road with this girl on the back of his motorcycle. I was devastated. I remember I was so devastated and like hyperventilating, crying, right? I thought, how could you do this? How could you do this to me? And then I'm thinking, I like left you before, right? Like I left you before for this person, and so I was like, how could you do this to me? And so I remember I called him and said, I cannot believe it. I can't believe you did this. And now you're like on the back of the motorcycle. He said, Gwen, you have to end things with people. And I needed to have a conversation with this person, right? To say, we are done. You're not for me, right? This is my person. And so that's what that whole moment was. And I was, so overreacted and whatever. And so he came, one night was supposed to go play in this pool tournament. And so me and my girls were at home, and there was a knock on the door. And I remember I like opened the door, and he was standing there, and I said, oh my gosh, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And he just like grabbed my face and just kissed me and said, this is where I'm meant to be, and I'm not ever leaving again. And that was it. And so he just came back. And so I had bought this, we lived in a trailer park here, in this really nice fancy trailer, which I always think is like really funny. Listen, I think it's like very funny that like when you're young and you live in a trailer, people have this whole like judgment against you. Like, oh my gosh, you must be trashy. Right. But then when you're here anyways, but then when you're 65, 70 and you live in a trailer home park, right? Because you're retired, now you're rich. Right.
So you're saving money. Unless you've done that already, it's like we're being frugal. Yeah. We have as much space as we need. What was it? What has been Doug's relationship with your daughters, the twins?
So I mean, like immediately, like he just like took care of them from the time that they were infants, right? And so they called him dad when they could start talking, right? I mean, he just took care of them like they were his own children. And so when he passed away, they lost their dad. Their biological dad would come around, and he was just not in a good place in his life. I mean, he still is an addict, and a really like uncontrollable alcoholic.
Mm.
And I mean, I probably shouldn't say that. Like he can function and go to work and stuff or whatever, but I mean, it's just, and so I did not foster a relationship with him and my girls either. I just left that up to Randy to say, like, if you want to have a relationship with them, here's all of their stuff, right? Like here's their basketball games, here's their volleyball, here's their things, here's their school dance. You are more than welcome to take them to the father-daughter dance, right? And he just couldn't do that. And so I would always just have to say to my girls, like, I'm sure that your dad loves you because people who bring people into this world love them. They just don't maybe know how, right? And so he's sick and just can't figure out how to get himself help, right? And so when we got divorced, the judge had said, you have the right to be part of your girls' life. And I didn't deny that, but he said, I can't take care of myself. I can't take care of them. Right. And I thought that was like probably the most mature thing ever that he ever like really said. And so at one point I was going to have him sign away his rights. And Doug stopped me from doing that and said, you're not going to do that because that takes away all his responsibility it takes away all of his responsibility, right? Of, being the dad. And so he's like, you're not going to just let him get off the hook that easy. And part of me was a little bit irritated by that, but I also understood it too, right? That like, you don't get to just say see you because I don't feel like I want to do this, right? And so Randy's having to sit in his own hell, quite honestly, right? I mean, and that's just is what is happening. And so my girls had a good relationship with Doug, and he coached all of their sports. His dad passed away a couple years before he did, and his dad was like my own dad. I mean, like he was such a great person. Oh gosh, I miss them both. And so now they both just get to live in heaven together. And so Doug and his dad were best friends. And after he passed away, Doug hit this part, in his life.
Okay, I'm gonna pause. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Did you and Doug remarry? Did you guys?
Oh, sorry. I'm just all over.
No, I'm keeping the list. I'm going back to no. So Doug comes. There's this kiss at the door. He says, "This is what I'm meant to be." I want to go back to there to you guys.
Okay, sorry. So yes, so now we're together, right? And so he is like, we're like hitting like this life like full force, right? We're hitting this life full force. So he's like taking care of my girls. We're like doing this thing. We sell the trailer and we move back to the little house that we own, right? Because he stayed living there.
The cottage.
And so into this little cottage house. So we moved back there, and then he was like, I want my own child, right? So we're having babies and we're doing all this kind of stuff, right? So, so my girls now are 3 when Olivia's born. So, right. So Hannah and Haley are 3. I'm pregnant. So we're pregnant with Olivia, and, we talk about getting married, right? So we always have the talks about getting married. We never, ever got around to getting remarried.
Okay.
And so, which is a whole other story.
Complicated, administrative, all the other stuff.
Yes, all of that. And in the state of Wisconsin, nothing is recognized.
Okay.
Or
duly noted for people to know that that's a part of those
so
are
after he passed away, things were very messy.
Yes.
And so I'm just finally 5 years in, have things all, I think, tied up.
Okay.
Right? Like all that stuff is all finally taken care of. And so we have Olivia. We're living in this little house. we have two toddlers, a baby in this little 2-bedroom home, right? And so we were like, this place is too small. What are we going to do? His dad is like, well, let's just swap houses. So his dad comes over and lives in the little house. We go over to this big house, renovate, like do some renovations on there, to get things all done. We move in on Christmas Eve, right? And so I say to Doug, though, we're not moving in until every single thing is done, until everything is done. He's like, don't even worry about it. I'll get it all taken care of. Olivia's now 18 years old. We still don't have trim up. I still don't have trim up in my house, right? We moved there when she was a year old. Okay. She was a year old. I still don't have trim up. And so that is on my list of things to get taken care of. So we're living over there in the big house. We're doing the thing. We're trying for like another baby. Doug and I lost a baby. And so I had a miscarriage after Olivia was born. I had a miscarriage, and then we got pregnant with Morgan. And so Morgan was supposed to be twins also. And I lost one of the babies very, very, super, very early. But Morgan stayed. And so 4 girls is what we ended up having. And so,
okay. So let's pause a little bit.
Yes.
The miscarriage experience, both of them. Can you share a little bit about that?
I was in between the one between Olivia and Morgan. I felt very alone in that, quite honestly. And so I remember I was at work and I started spotting, and now I worked at a hospital. And so, I knew all of the doctors. I knew the nurses. I worked down in that, as a patient advocate, to help people figure out how they're going to pay their bills, how to do insurance, just find like cancer patients, to find, different areas for them to help themselves and stuff. And so I remember I just ran upstairs and was like, oh my gosh, you guys, there's something that is having. I found my doctor and I said, I think I'm having a miscarriage. And so, they did that blood test or whatever that they can tell, if your hormones, and so, they were dropping. And I remember they just kind of were like, okay, just go back down, go back to work. Right. And just let this process happen. And I thought, I'm just going to go home. And so, I went home and I pulled into the driveway, and I remember him and his dad were out in the yard. Right. And I just got out of the car and I just started crying. And Doug said, what's the matter? And I said, I lost the baby. And I think he just kind of quickly just hugged me, right, a little bit or whatever. But it wasn't this whole big, it wasn't a big deal. Right. And I was devastated. Right. It was such a sad thing. It was so early though too. Right. But it was this, I wanted to have this baby. We wanted to have this baby. And so I remember I just went into the house and I just cried by myself. For a couple of days, right? And I thought, okay, this is not we just lost a pet, right? And we're just gonna, go on. And so, and then I just went back to work. I didn't have to go in and have any kind of procedures or anything done. Nature did what it was supposed to, and so I was very lucky. I was, fortunate for all of that kind of stuff. And then I don't even know, if we even really talked about it, quite honestly. After that, I don't even know if we really even talked about it. And then when I got pregnant with Morgan, I remember I was so excited, but I was so nervous, right? I was so nervous, right? Because I thought, oh gosh, and you go through that whole guilt kind of stuff of maybe I did something, and then really, I now know, of course, that that's not how it works, right? It just happens. And so, and when I was pregnant with Morgan then too, and then I started spotting and I thought, oh gosh, this is it, right? Here it comes. It's going to be another thing. And so because I had twins already, when I was, when I would get pregnant, they would do an ultrasound kind of as soon as you're able to do that, to make sure that everything, and to make sure that there was not multiple babies. Right. And so when I went in and had the ultrasound with Olivia, they were like, and I was like, oh, do not even tell me. And they're like, nope, that's just a shadow. But Morgan, they did hear like 2 heartbeats. And I was like, oh my gosh, you have got to be kidding, right? You've got to be kidding. And so we went in and we just did an ultrasound right away. And there was just 1 heartbeat left. Right. And so then your body just really absorbs that, right? Quite honestly, when you have twins. And so it just absorbs that. And so, was not as devastating, right? That wasn't like as devastating because I had a baby still, right? And I just thought, okay, God is like knowing what is supposed to be happening, because I maybe could not have handled like another set of twins, quite honestly, right? I mean, that was, that's what I played in my head of like, why it happened or whatever. I don't even know if like, Doug was just kind of like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, we still have 1 baby, right? I mean, it was like that kind of stuff. I mean, that's how he was. That's why I'm saying about like not, being like so affectionate and that kind of way. Like I can just hold you, for hours while you're crying, right? I can't.
So he
do
was
that
able to ground
scary.
you. He was
Right.
able to ground you. Did you connect the word grief with the loss of having the miscarriage, or it just was hard and you just kept moving on with life?
Nope,
Okay.
I didn't. Nope, I just did not think about that at all. And so I don't think I really even like connected the word grief. Obviously until after Doug passed away. And not even, even like, I like lost my grandparents. When I was a young girl, I lost like my favorite person. My dad's brother was my uncle, so my Uncle Dale, he died by suicide. I was really young. I was 8 years old. And so I didn't understand it. I didn't understand that at all. Like one day he's here and then all of a sudden he's not, but he was so ultimately like cool to me. He was the coolest person.
The cool
right?
uncle, yeah.
With this like great long hair and complete like epitomes of the 70s guy, right? And so bell bottoms and just like listen to this cool music and totally turned me on to like Leonard Skinner, when I was 8 years old. Drove this like motorcycle, lived in a bus, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, so all of that really. And so he just was like fighting life, right? Like yes. And so then I didn't really even like know what grief was, right? And until
you can't skip. Hold on.
No.
So Morgan, and let's transition to where life went. I don't want to just jump to what happened.
Yeah, and so then we're just all like living, right? We're just like living and we're doing our thing, right? We talk about every once in a while like getting married again. I remember we were in Walmart. I think we were in Walmart or Target, one of those stores, like Walmart. I'm pretty sure probably Walmart. And Doug handed me this little box, and it was filled with all of these like gumball machine rings. Like all of the rings that you got from a gumball. And he said, oh my gosh, will you marry me again? And I was like, yeah, I'll marry you again. Right. And I had like all of these like gumball, rings. And so we just talked about it. And then we just would never like pick a day, right? Like we didn't pick a day because was it that important? I don't really know. I mean, obviously not. Because we were living together. We were doing all of the things that married couples did, right? I mean, we live just like married couples. And so we took care of our girls, we raised them up. Morgan was 10 when Doug passed away. Olivia would have been 13 and Hannah and Haley were just getting a driver's license. So 16 years old.
Do you mind, Gwen, talking about, you mentioned today was an important day. Can you talk about what that is up to when Doug transitioned, now that we kind of have progressed in life where things were? I know this day is important. I just wanted to share that part because that's part of your journey.
No, for sure. Yes. And so I would like to say too, I mean, like, we had all of our issues, right? Like other couples and, all of that. And so before he passed away, let's talk about this quick. And so Doug's dad had prostate cancer. And he kind of put things off, right? Thinking it was fine. And then it actually ended up metastasizing. And so we went to the hospital and because he had like this infection and then it came to find out, right? Like he was at the end of life himself. And so we brought him home and put him on hospice. And now we have this little house on our property that we call, this is going to be horror. We call it the death house. Quite honestly, I call it the death house. And so there's a
Hold on. Was that the name before his dad lived there or afterwards?
No, afterwards.
Okay.
Afterwards. Okay. So Doug built this house out of this little like shed that we had, quite honestly. And so he was so handy, right? Gosh, if there's anything I miss him, but I missed him for like his handiness. Man, that guy could just like he was such a hard worker. Oh gosh, he was such a hard worker. And so he just took care of everything, right? I mean, he just took care of everything. And so anyways, he built to his dad this house so his dad could like be with us. And then, but this was before his dad got sick. Because then we ended up renting out our little cottage house to some single mom. Like we rented it out to single moms who like needed places to stay. So,
nice.
So that's what that turned into. So where like the state paid us, right? So people could come and like live there, and then, so we did that.
Okay.
And so anyway, so his dad's living in this little house, and so his dad ends up being sick. And so we bring him home. And so they told us, 6 months probably that he would last 6 months. He lasted 3 weeks. And so I got to witness Doug taking care of this human being. He took care of us, right? And he took care of our girls in these ways. I don't know if he ever really took care of me like that.
Okay.
Let's say I'm sick, right? And I'd be like, oh my gosh, could you make me something? He'd be right, man, here's your Kleenex or whatever, right? I mean, not like I watched him bathe his dad. And,
wow. And he doted over him.
Yeah. Like at the end, right? I mean, his dad was losing his bowels. And I mean, Doug had so much dignity for this person that I just thought, gosh, you are so incredible. And I want to be like you, right? I want to be like you. And so if there's anything out of being with him in this life, I'm going to be like that. That's what I want to be like. And so anyways, so we lost him. We lost his dad after 3 weeks, and it was so quick. Then Doug decided to quit his job. And so he worked at this place for 25 years, and he said, I'm quitting my job. And I said, what? And he said, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm staying home, and I'm taking care of you and the girls, and I'm working at the store, and I'm going to drive bus. And I thought, oh gosh, how are we going to do this? And I said, okay. Right? How could I deny him that? I couldn't deny him that, right? He just lost his best friend, and he was like, I am not losing any more of my life, right?
Yes.
Of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and not getting home until dark and, doing all of this kind of stuff. And so I'm just going to live my life. And so I said, okay, let's just do it. And so we just completely lived off of faith. I mean, really, I don't, even to this day, I still don't know how I make it, quite honestly. And so I just live off of faith. He quit his job. He worked so hard to become a bus driver for our school system here. And so he had some learning disabilities, right? He had a mild thing of dyslexia. And so it would take him forever to do some things. And so he had to take the test for the written part of the bus driving test probably 15 times. And finally, the person who was doing the thing said, I'm just going to walk you around the bus and you're going to tell me all of the stuff, right? And so he could just do all that. And so then they gave him his bus driver's license, right? And so the kids here loved him so much. And so I'm so happy that for the last 2 years, right, of his life, he was doing something that he super loved. And so he got to be home. He got to take care of our girls. He took care of our house, right? I mean, did the stuff. I worked here at the store. And I own an antique store. And so that's what, he came here and helped me at the store. And then all of a sudden something happened to him. And I think he was not processing the grief of his dad at all. And so wasn't talking about it, wasn't recognizing, and just became this, not like a shell, but there was something that was going on with him. Okay. And so, won't know if there was like a little bit of depression or, I mean, and now that I know what grief is and like how it hurts to miss somebody, I recognize it. I didn't recognize it then, in him. And I would say to him, like, hey, do you want to talk about your dad, or do you want to, nope. Right. I don't want to talk about it. And so he shut down like a lot, right? Like he shut down a lot. And so didn't talk to me, and whatever. Really put a lot of focus into coaching our girls. And so he coached like all of our girls for volleyball and basketball and, and did that. Our one daughter, Olivia, and him were like inseparable. I mean, like really like inseparable. It was kind of crazy. And there's a whole story that goes along with that, like years down the road, that just is kind of so incredible, things that you like find out. Anyways, and so they just had this relationship that was completely amazing. Okay. Completely amazing. And so, they just got each other. And so it was, I was a little irritated by it, quite honestly. And so I would say to Doug, him, like, you hog her, you hog Olivia. And I don't really even get an opportunity to like, even know who my child is. Right. And so he was like, didn't really think anything of it. So anyways, at the ending part of his life, our relationship was not real solid. And so we were in like, how like relationships like ebb and flow, right? We were in like a down part of it. Now, remember, I've already been divorced from him because I was bored, right? Or whatever. Right. And so I had said to him at one point, if you ever think about having to go and be with somebody else or whatever, right? Because that's kind of how our relationship ended in the beginning, right? I mean, I was attracted to, a different person. I said, please, you have to like, let me know. And he said, we would not be getting back together if I was going to give you I'm going to one up you or whatever, right? Like those kind of things. He's like, I'm not doing that. That's not how I operate. And I'm not doing that. And so I don't really know, like, whatever, but I just know that he was like distant. We just both were like not in a really good, couldn't communicate. And I was trying to figure it out. He was trying to figure it out. And I remember one day I said, you got to get out of the chair. Come on, man. Like, come on, get up, get out of the chair and go and like do something today. Right. Like he just wasn't even really like wanting to work. And I don't know if he was like still driving bus and stuff or whatever, but I don't know if he wasn't feeling well, if he knew something was coming, right? Like if he knew something was coming. And so I would say to him, like, you have got to start taking care of yourself because our girls need two parents, right? You're going to die before you're even 55 years old. And we want you around here. So please take care of yourself. And so, he smoked, he drank way too much Mountain Dew. He was asthmatic. All of that stuff. And we have been through all of the asthma attacks and things before. And so when weather would change, it would really severely affect him. And usually when it came, right, it would be hard for him. And so, if he had ever would like get a cold or, anything like that, I mean, it was really, it was very scary. And so the year before, I think it was maybe the year before that, he was actually in the hospital for a week. And I just kept saying like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I can't do this by myself. I can't do this. I was trying to take care of our house, get our kids to all of the sports, do the things. I said to Doug, I just got to give up. I'm not taking them to the game tonight. I'm not doing he was like, you are going to do this, Gwen. I believe in you. You can do this. You are so capable of taking care of all of this stuff. Right. He's like, no, get your ass in that car and go take our daughters to like all of their stuff that they need to do. Right. And I was like, okay, I'm going. I can do it. Right? I can do it. Well, little did I know, right? I mean, I like use that every once in a while when I'm having these moments, right? I just remember him saying, like, I'll believe in you. You can do this, and like you can do this. And so, anyways, the ending of our relationship, I mean, we were just in like a down thing, right? And so one time I said, like, do you just want me to leave? Like, what do you want me to do? And he was like, I don't even care. I don't even care what you do, right? And so this was maybe like 2 weeks before he passed away. And so there's that kind of stuff, right? That like just sticks with you. And I'm at peace with it. I'm at peace with it, but there's just moments, right? That now that it's 5 years out, I'm at peace. And so today was the day. And so at 7:00 in the morning, I was driving our twins had volleyball practice in the morning early. And so I left to bring them to volleyball at like 6:30. And I got up and Doug was having a hard time breathing. And I said, oh my gosh, are you okay? And he said, I'm going to be fine. Right. And he's like, doing the thing. And he always could get himself out of it. Right. And so I said, this seems like pretty serious, Doug. Do you want me to take you to the hospital? Because I'll just drive you to the hospital. He's like, nope, I got it under control. I'm going to be fine. Right. And I said, I'll call you an ambulance. And so he said, nope, I'm going to be fine. And so I trusted that. Right. I mean, I had to trust what he said. Right. Because that's what he said. And so I left to drive our girls into school. And I stopped at the gas station and got a cup of coffee and was like putting gas in the car. And Olivia called and said, you have to come back home because Dad can't breathe and he can't drive the bus. And so normally he would drive, then he would just bring Olivia and Morgan in on the bus.
Okay.
Right? And so the bus is running, it's in our driveway because our buses can stay at your house.
Yes.
Right here. So the bus is running. Olivia and Morgan are going to get ready to get on the bus, right? And Doug's going to drive them to school. And I just wrote about this morning. Like, I don't really know. I wonder if I like through the day, like, is the stuff that I remember like really true? Like, I know I was at the gas station, I was pumping gas, but was I pumping gas when then the phone call came and I had to like finish pumping, and so Olivia called me and she said, in this, screaming, oh my God, Mom, Dad's on the ground, right? I can't get him up. And I said, I'm on my way, Olivia, I'm on my way. It was really snowy here.
Okay.
We were having like not a snowstorm, but it was icy, right? It was snowing. We were in the middle of this like polar vortex, like so freezing cold. And I drove probably 75 miles an hour.
I bet.
Right. And when I got like all of a sudden, though, it was like every single person who was on the road was totally gone. Right. I had a clean shot. Like,
okay.
I had a clean shot. We're 8 miles out of where we're at. I had a clean shot to my house. Right. Like there was like nobody, I didn't have to be honking. Right. I don't think I did. I think I just drove. Right. And so I said to Olivia, go and get Grandma. So now Doug's mom is living in this little house. Okay. After his dad passed away, his mom is now there. And so he had a stepdad, right? And so his mom and stepdad are living in this little house. And so they're up here and they're living there. And so I said, go over and get Grandma and, get her. And they said, and then call 911. Olivia, I need you to call 911 and I need you to listen to what the lady says to you, right? And so I called 911 or maybe told the 911 operator to call Olivia. I think that's what, I don't even know because I rattled off Olivia's phone number. And right now to this day, I could not tell you my daughter's phone number. I don't even know what it is, but they called her, right? And so I call and said, oh my gosh, you have to get somebody to my house. My husband is dead on our kitchen floor. And she was like, what? And I was like, my girls are home. You don't understand. I know that he's dead and my daughters are there with him. And you have to get somebody there and call my daughter and tell her what to do. And here's her phone number. And then I said, I'm going to hang up. And she's like, no, you have to tell. I go, here's our address, right? I said, and now I'm going to hang up because I have other people to call. And I said, and I have to use two hands to drive safely, right? And so she said, slow down. Like, I need you to slow down so we're not calling an ambulance for you. And I said, you don't understand. My girls are there, right? And so I hung up the phone, and there's a gentleman who is a friend of mine, who's also a vendor here in my store, and he lives by us. And he never, ever is awake in the morning. And I called him and I said, Jim, you have to get to my house right now. Doug is dead on our kitchen floor. I know that he is. And so I said, get there. If you get there before me, I just need you to get there and be there with Olivia Morgan. And so I got to the house and I walked in, and he was on the floor already, right? He was on our kitchen floor, and his mom was like patting him on the face, right? Like just trying to wake him up, right? Like, Doug, Doug, Doug. And so I remember I like yelled to the 911 operator because they were on the phone, she was on the phone, and I said, oh my God, I'm here. And in my mind, I think that this is what happened. And I think that this is what happened. I remember I pushed the chairs, right? Because I feel like that I threw the chairs out, and I just jumped on top of him, and I started giving him CPR, right? And so I started giving him CPR and doing the breath, right? And so we did that, and he threw up death in my mouth. And so I knew that he was gone, right? And so, and we just kept doing it. And so I had to switch with his mom, and I said, you gotta do this, right? Because I have to do chest compressions. Now, I don't know what was happening with Olivia Morgan, honestly. And even to this day, I don't really even know. I don't know exactly what they saw. I don't know exactly what they went through. Morgan has said some things to me that Olivia was in the bathroom, hanging her head on, and saying no, 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 over and over again. I remember Morgan was 10 and Olivia was 13, and she just witnessed her dad, her very best friend, her very best friend in the world, right? Go down. And so, the EMTs got there, and my friend Jim came, right? And so we were all in the living room, and the EMTs got there. And now we live in a very small community where every 2,500 people. And so every single person knows each other by their first name. I know everybody on our fire department. I know every EMT, all of the nurses and the doctors and all of that. And so the person who was in our kitchen trying to save Doug's life, Doug just was on a basketball court with him 2 days before coaching his daughter. Right. And so I'm yelling at him, Adam, you got to do the thing, right? I mean, do the stuff. And so they put the chest compression machine on him, and they said to me, don't look back. And so of course I did. Right. And so I remember I went to they said, take your girls and go to the living room. Right. And don't turn around. And I turned around, and when they're doing that thing, right, all this stuff, because your body does all the fluids were coming out. And I just thought, oh gosh, we're not getting him back. And then they got a pulse back. And I thought, oh my gosh, could this even be happening? Right? Could this even be happening? And so they got a pulse back. And so we went to the hospital. And so we're here at the hospital, and I'm calling, I called my parents, I called my sister. She called, her husband, which is Doug's brother. We got all of the people there. I had to send Jim to the high school so he could get the twins. They thought our dog died, right? I mean, they were thinking that our, they had no idea that it was their dad, right? And so we're at the hospital, and I was supposed to go on a lunch date. Okay, so I had a lunch date with a girlfriend, and so she had just lost her husband a year before by a heart attack thing, right? And so I was supposed to go meet her for lunch. I remember I called her and said, I can't come to lunch today. Doug just had a heart attack. And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah, seriously. It's she kind of she just was there for me throughout the whole process of the day. Right. And so I'm in the emergency room. And so the doctor who's in there, I used to have to go have meetings with him when I was working at the hospital. Right. And so this whole crew, right. And so I'm yelling at him, calling him by his first name, right. Eric, you're going to do every single thing you can to save him, right? You're going to save his life. We have girls, you've taken care of all of us, and you're going to save his life. And now he's screaming, somebody get Gwen out of here. It totally is like a movie, right? It's what you see on a movie. And so I had to leave.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad came and told me that I needed to calm down. right? Like, you should calm down. Like, I needed to calm down. And I probably, like, I'm sure I used some language towards my dad that he has forgiven me for, because in the moment of it, whatever, but I just thought, how dare you tell me to calm down? Our whole entire life just is getting completely like uprooted here, right? And so we were there in our local little hospital for probably an hour or so, maybe. I don't even know, right? And so he kept going in and out and in and out. And so they would lose a pulse and it would come back, and lose a pulse and come back. And so then they sent him down to Regions, which is a big, trauma hospital for us here down in the cities. So down in St. Paul. And so, so we got there. And so that for today, that's where we spent most of the day, just trying to figure things out and what actually happened. And so he had an asthma attack, which then, because your body is forcing itself to like breathe so heavily, it causes kidneys to produce like way too much potassium, caused him to have a heart attack. And then, of course, he was without oxygen for too long. And so while we're all down there and the doctors are telling us all this, immediately my girls knew what that meant, because back in October, we had this dog that had this very like weird, like heat stroke seizure. And we brought the dog to this emergency vet, and they were going to put the dog on a life support thing because her brain was swelling and she was without oxygen. And so when the doctors were saying like his brain is swelling and there is a brain bleed, and he has been without oxygen for too long, my girls immediately knew, because we had to put the dog down. And so part of me is like, here's what I'm going to say this, like, death is horrendous, right? And all of the stuff that comes with it is so unbelievably painful. And then there are parts of it that are so incredibly beautiful and like miraculous. And if you believe in, I don't believe really like in coincidence. And so our dog, that was supposed to happen to our dog, right? That prepared our girls.
Yes.
It was a preparation, right? Like they knew. And so they were not in this all of a sudden. We were all in this shock, right? I mean, that's all, comes along with it. And very traumatic. And so we all suffer from a little bit of like, post-traumatic. And so it also, though, at that moment, we just were like, okay, now we know what we're going to deal with, right? And now we're going to go on. And so for the day, for today, right, we were down at the hospital and we, got through all of the doctor stuff and whatever. And, when they show all of the things on the movies, right, where, the wife or the husband is hyperventilating in a room, I mean, that's all true stuff.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's true. And, I remember I was in the emergency room and I said to the doctors, like, you have to give me something. Like I was like begging them for something, right? I was like, you have to give me some Valium. They do that on the movie, right? Like this is like a movie and they give you something. And they were like, we're not giving you anything, Gwen. Put your head between your legs and start breathing, right? Like that's what I want you to do. And I was like, this is not how it's supposed to work, right?
You're not the movie.
Yeah, you're supposed to. This is like a movie, but this is not happening like we're supposed to. You're supposed to like sedate me, right? Like you give me a shot and sedate me, right? And so we couldn't do that. Now, here's where, because Doug and I were not legally married, I got to make the decisions, but I couldn't sign off on any paperwork, right? I couldn't sign off on any paper stuff. So his mom had to.
Wow.
And so moments and stuff really get the family dynamics and stuff, right, all come into play. Okay. And so my brother-in-law had to, say like, you remember who's in charge, right? She's in charge. This is her life. This is her family. She's making the decisions, right? Does not matter if it's not on a piece of paper or not. They are married, right? And so so when the doctors and the nurses and stuff came, they specifically talked to me, right? But we just would have to have somebody else like sign the papers. And so That's what
That
happened.
was very respectful that everybody was able to work accordingly, because during very difficult times when emotions are heightened, it's very easy to slip and make decisions that you regret when you look back at it. So I'm glad that the family was able to work together like that.
Yeah, there were moments though through the days, through these days, right? And so then tomorrow, so for 3 days we were down there. We were down and he was on life support. And so yeah, so today is the day, like that I count like was the first time that we had to like say goodbye. And then Friday, which will be the 26th, is the actual day where we at 9:26 is when we went down to the operating room, and that's when he was gone. And so because he was on life support, people got to come and they got to say goodbye. And I got to spend, I didn't leave that room. I mean, I did not leave that room. I stayed there the whole time. And so because I also feel like because our relationship was, teetering like a little bit, I got to say like so much stuff to him. I got to ask for forgiveness and I got to give forgiveness. And I just talked to him for like a whole 24 hours. I like climbed up in that bed with him. I like begged him to like wake up. I mean, it just was, there was moments, right? Like we thought that we saw his leg move and it really was the compression thing.
Okay.
And my one daughter too. And I just thought, this is really what like hope is, right? Like this is what hope feels like. Cause we were like, oh my gosh, yes, right? Like he just moved. And so we were like, oh, you guys. So we were all like rejoicing this whole thing. And then it really wasn't, that's not what happened. Right. And so, but I just thought, oh gosh, this is what hope feels like, right? This is really like what hope feels like. And that was magic part of it, right? There was a moment where we thought we're going to get him back. And then I don't know what he would have even been like if we would have been able to, if he would have been back, if he would have came back, he would have not been himself. That's for sure.
Right.
So, he became an organ donor. And so, they had to come and ask us if we would give permission for him to be an organ donor. And I was like, absolutely. Right. And so some of the other people in the family did not want him to do that. He has another brother who has a really very different religion than the rest of us. And so they don't believe in that. And so he was fighting, that got messy, and was fighting it a lot, to say we're not doing this. And so then the nurse just came and said, it doesn't really matter what you all think. Anyways, Doug signed the back of his driver's license. And so he already gave permission. Right. And so, so now we just were waiting for a match. And so that's what we were there for. Right. And so we just waited for a match to come up. And so, through all of these days too, now, like my girls are like very, very athletic, and there was this very big volleyball tournament. Right. And so, I didn't know what to do. It was the first time I had to make decisions like by myself. And, everybody kind of like helped me through that. And my girls were like, we would like to play volleyball, Mom. Right. And I thought, okay, you're going to go do this. Right. We're still going to kind of like live, even though we're down here. Right. And they had a play down in the city. So they weren't far from there. Right. My sister took over and, shuffled my girls to where they needed to go, where they needed to be. My mom came here and ran the store. And I just stayed down there, for those 3 days. And people, brought stuff and whatever. Doug's stepsister, like brought me clothes and whatever. I think I did shower at like one point. And so my friend Jim, he stayed there with me almost the whole time. Right. He's this older gentleman, super great. He knows about death, right? He lost his son. And so I was so appreciative to have him there. And to just like, just to be like another, like an outsider of the family, right? To be, what would be the word?
A sounding board of
yes. Yeah. Something like that. Right. So, like not like so objective, like he didn't have, he loved Doug. And so, and he loves our girls and stuff like that too. But it wasn't like his heart, right? For like the rest of us, so he could kind of help us like see,
He wasn't in that fog. He was there, but
Correct.
it hadn't taken him over because that attachment didn't exist. Yes.
Yes.
He could
So
be the
he
voice
stayed
of
down
reason.
there.
Maybe that's better.
Correct. That's it. So he stayed down there with me. And so, like I said, I just got to talk, I just talked to him. I just talked to Doug about, oh gosh, every single thing. And so, it was really incredible, quite honestly, and heart-wrenching. It's the worst pain that I can't even imagine how you make it through. I mean, obviously I can because I'm here, but at
that moment,
yes,
moment, you cannot comprehend how you can even breathe another breath.
Right? Like, we are not going to make it through this. Like, I am just not going to make it through this. Right. And I remember I curled up on the bathroom floor on the second night, and I just was in there and just like wailing, right? Like, in the hospital. I didn't even care if anybody could like hear me. I didn't know if they soundproof stuff, right? And so I was in there, and I remember I was like begging Jesus, right? Like, I was like, you better make this, you better make this be purposeful, right? This death has to be purposeful. And so I was like, I don't know what you're taking him for, but you better make this have a purpose. And then all of a sudden there was like a knock on the bathroom door, and the transplant nurse, Barb, came and said, Mary. Oh gosh, I want to know her name. I think Mary. Knocked on the door and said, we found a match. I mean, just at that moment when I was like screaming out, right? Like, she was like, we found a match. And I was like, oh my gosh. And this wave of peace just came over me. This whole incredible thing. And I thought, okay, this is it, right? Like, he's going to go, and he is like saving somebody else's life, right? Like, our family is going to get turned upside down, but these other families are going to be able to live. Right. And that's what happened. And so, the next day we just, we waited, for all of the way that it has to like work is like pretty incredible. And so what the transplant team had said to me, that is only 1% of people who sign up to be a organ donor actually get to. And so not everybody who signs up can do it, because all of the parts of the event have to be just in order, right? And so Doug going down and then becoming like, so because he got brought back and then like gone and up and gone, it didn't like all of his organs didn't die off, right? And so because they were able to like save him, put him on a life support, and his brain was dead, but everything else was viable. Wow. So it all had to like just work like perfect. And so that's what happened. And so I get a lot of peace from that. And I find it like so incredible that he's gone, right? Like his soul or whatever, was still here, but there's part of him that is still like walking on this earth.
Wow.
Right? Like, in multiple people. And so it's so crazy, right? So my girls, so through that day or whatever, we came and we all got to say goodbye. We just, had to like send a message to the girls' boyfriends and said, okay, it's now time. They had to leave the volleyball and then came and that's what we did. Right. And so they came and we were all there then together as a family, and, said our goodbyes. And then we were going to go down to the operating room, and I was the only one who was going to go. And I said, you guys, he's not going down there by himself. There's no way. There's no way I am letting him be down there by himself. I am going to hold his hand, and he's not going to be alone. But with strangers, we are not doing that. And so then my sister said, can I come too? And I was like, absolutely. And then his brother said, I would like to be there. And his stepsister said, I would like to be there also. I was like, come on. I did not let our girls go down there. And part of me wonders if that was the right choice. And it doesn't matter now because it's too late.
And you made the best choice you could at that decision. But you made the best decision you could.
Yes. And so I don't know if I wanted them to, I would have wanted them to be in there. It was a little, it was pretty,
Yeah, that's pretty intense. And you're not sure if they had the emotional bandwidth to
yes,
manage what that would do to them. So you needed
yes.
to be a mom and this wife at the same time and trying to make those, that duality is tough.
Mm-hmm. And so we went down there, and so I had said to him before we were bringing him down there, right? I said, please don't wait, right? Like when they unhook you, please don't wait. And I said, I want you to like go like as fast as you can, like run to your dad. And I said, run to Jesus and just get there, right? Like I just want you to get there. And so, so they had like the chaplain like came in, and so here's like the funny, like some of the things, right? The chaplain comes. Now we're not like really like a super religious family, and we, I totally believe in a higher power, and there's a definitely like a heaven, because I've been shown it like on like numerous times. I believe that there is something, right? I call Jesus like God, universe, spirit, right? I call him Gus, and I think that it's a girl, and so.
Well, have you seen the movie The Cabin?
I have not.
That is a very good movie. And there are points in there where they show that God could have, the God as a female persona, that we may need both. So I can see that. I mean,
right.
Yes, if we came from God and there's a male and female, there's something to be considered with that.
Yes, for sure. Right. And I just think, I mean, God is just like all around. Right. But anyways, when we, what was my point?
that Doug is going in. You wanted him to run to Jesus.
Oh yes, but I wanted him to run to Jesus, right? And so I wanted him to get there. And so the chaplain comes right before we're going to go down there, and he has this just was like, it would have been like such a funny thing. Doug would have been totally laughing at it, right? Such a thick accent, and he couldn't say Douglas, and so he kept calling him Douglas, right? And so he'd be like, in Douglas, we're praying over you in Douglas. And so we at one point just started laughing, and then he started laughing too. And so he was like, I'm so sorry, right? And so because we were like, who's Douglas? And so he would try to say Doug again. And so we just were laughing. And so it's just those moments, right? That like here your life is like turning on its end, and then we're having this whole like laughing moment, right? With the chaplain at the hospital, and then we're on our way. And so we go down to the room, and we're getting ready, and we're all, putting on, we have to like put these whole big white gowns on, and we have the, all of the stuff, right? And the nurse said, when you start crying, you got to pull your mask out. And we were like, okay, right? And she said, because otherwise it's going to get filled with snot.
Okay.
Good to know, right? And so before we go down there, right now we like all like say a prayer, we like listen to some music, we did the stuff, and then we're walking down this long hallway, and it was the most like bizarre like feeling, right? I thought, is this what people feel like when they're like on death row? I mean, I don't really know, right? They're like walking down this and you're gonna go through these doors. But then I also had this moment where I thought, this is like Willy Wonka. We're like these like Oompa Loompas. We're like walking down this hallway, right? And we had a knock on the door. We had to like knock like 3 times on the door so the people like knew that we were like coming, right? And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is so bizarre. And then in we go to this room, right? Like this big light, bright, filled with all of these people, right? All of these surgeons and all of these nurses. And here he is laying on this gurney, and he's all hooked up, right? And this music is playing, in country music, right? Because Doug loved country music. Not my thing, but I was like, play the country music for him. And so we're listening to this country music, and they're trying, like, what would he like, right? And so I was like, yeah, he would like country music. So country music is playing in the background, and I don't even know what song it was on, right? And we're just there. And so they unhook him, and you can watch the monitors, right? Like start to go down. And so all of a sudden now his heartbeat is like stopping. And I started yelling like, I'm not ready. Like, you have to hook him back up. And so I was like,
Oh,
please, like, you got to hook him back up, hook him back. Like, I'm not, you can't do this. I can't have this be done. We're just going to keep him on here and we're just going to hang on to him like this. Right. Like, I'm not ready to let him go. And so I just completely panicked. I
yes.
completely panicked on it because I thought I was ready and I wasn't. And so all of a sudden everything stopped and he wouldn't progress. Right. So it was like he was there, right? Like in this limbo thing. And he just wouldn't progress. And now we're all crying, right? And so then we start yelling, pull the mask, right? Because, my brother-in-law is like, I have snot, and so, so we have these moments and now we're just sitting there and I'm waiting for him. I'm waiting for Doug we're waiting. And so he's not doing anything. And I remember I kind of like started like tapping his arm, like didn't, like waiting, like I'm bored, right? Like it was one of those things, like, why are you not doing anything? And the surgeon said, Gwen, tell him, okay? You have to tell him that he can go.
Okay.
And so I said, okay, I'm good, Doug. Like I'm good. And I'm good and you can go, right? And I'm going to take care of the girls and we're going to be fine and we're going to live like a happy, joyous life and we're going to be fine. And so I said, I now need you. Like, you have to run to your dad. Like, please, like, run to your dad and go find him, right? And go find Jesus and run to your dad. That's the only person that you need up there, right? Like, just go find your dad. And as soon as that happened, all of a sudden it went, and he was
Wow.
gone. It was so incredible, right? Like, it was the most beautiful, like, heartache I'm ever going to probably witness, right? That I'm ever going to witness. I mean, more so than when I like birthed my children,
Right.
right? Because you're seeing somebody like enter the other side,
Yes.
right? And so it was so amazing and so awful, right?
Yes.
And then what do? Then we just turn around and we just walked out the door because they now have to get ready to just
Right.
to do what they're going to do. And then we just left and then we just walk out. And so we went, back up to his room and, we went into that hospital with a person and we came out with a bag, right? Like of just his belongings. And that nurse though, gosh, I wish I knew her name. Oh, I'm gonna have to look it up. Mary, I think she just held my daughter and all of a sudden Olivia completely, like, her whole being changed when we were walking out that room. And I said, that lady just gave you back your power, didn't she? And she said, yep, she did. And to this day, I don't know what she said. I don't know what their conversation was. And I thought, I don't really need to know because that is something that can just be private between Olivia and her. Right. And so those doctors and the nurses and stuff done, like our one doctor, Dr. Hope was like the one lady. And she just was like, I just get all the whole time. I was like, of course your name is Hope, right?
I
Like,
know.
of course that will be your name, right? So yeah, Dr. Hope, right? And I was like, yeah, of course that'll be your name. She was just so, she didn't mess around with things. She just told you, right? And I so appreciated that. And I remember, like, I think like his mom was like, Doug's mom was kind of like, wow, that, she could have softened it. I go, nope, I needed that. I needed somebody to just tell me the truth, right? Like, I don't want something to pretend, right? My girls didn't need anybody to pretend for them, right? We just needed somebody to tell us the truth of what was happening. And I appreciated that. He had this male nurse. We had this male nurse down there and he just was my protector. And there was a couple moments where I needed to have somebody to be there and like stick up for me. And then he just was so kind. And he said, how do you feel about like me just like shaving him? Right. And just getting him all, because he still was like growing. Right. So even though he was on life support, right. Like he still was like, yeah, he needed to shave. Right. And so, he just like, I watched this man just gently like shave his face. And I just thought, that was so incredible. I
Yeah.
got to witness so many like amazing things through
Yes.
this. And humans are incredible, right? And so that's it.
Wow.
That's where we're at. hmm So
Wow.
it's 5 years, and
But
it
but
feels
but
like
hold on for a second,
yeah.
because that's a lot. And I want to say thank you for being so willing to share all of that. Sometimes we can talk about that and it doesn't bother us at all. And sometimes it's like we're right back there at that moment.
Mhm.
And I know you wanted to share to be able to help other people and to know that they're not alone and to be able to know that other people go through this. So I want to tell you thank you. And you mentioned something when we first started talking about how much it seems like you don't remember. It's like you remember everything up to that, but the year that's after that often seems to be very foggy, like what really
Mm.
happened after those pieces. And it's also interesting how that moment can be so big that you talked about how it almost swallows up some of the good moments that you had, like that moment you remember with Doug being there at the park and
Mhm.
talking to them. And it takes a while for us to be able to recapture. Have you thought of any other wonderful moments that you've had with Doug that seem like grief had kind of taken them and swallowed the memory that is coming back for you now?
I just think just kind of just like throughout, like I mean there was like moments though that like were coming back and I was like, oh, remember I was like so mad at you, right? Like how come you couldn't be like, how, why couldn't you have been like more affectionate? And then there was a times where I was like, oh my gosh, I remember we had this dog when we were young and it was, oh gosh, I love this dog. I loved it so much. And when Doug bought me this dog, I thought, oh, you got me a yippy dog, and what were you thinking? And it was always like he just knew, right? Like he knew what was like best for me when I didn't
Mhm.
know what was best for me, right? And so he bought me this dog, and this dog got hit by a car in front of me, right? And
Oh,
so trauma, right? That was traumatic. I cried for days. Um, Doug worked nights, and I went into the house and I was like hyperventilating. I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like the dog, like got hit by a car, And so he went out with this bucket of like soapy water and like scrubbed the road. Doug like scrubbed the road off so I didn't have to look at the spot
right.
where our dog got like hit by this car, right? And so that I remember like came back up. And then our girls, when Hannah and Haley were little, they both had RSV. And so they were RSV, and one was going to go, they wanted to like send one to the cities and one was going to have to stay here. And I was like, they both are going to be together, right? This is what has to happen. And so we were leaving the hospital and Doug said, I'll be back. I'll be back to get you. And I was like, where are you going? He went home and like totally I mean, like we walked into the house and it was like this whole like Clorox, like bleach company, like came to the house, but he was like disinfecting like every single thing, right? Like disinfecting every single thing at the house because he wanted to make sure that all of it was clean, because the doctors were saying like if there was, like any of like the cold like virus or whatever like hanging out that they could possibly
Oh,
like be.
okay.
So he went home and was like lysoling, and I thought, oh my gosh, who does that, right? And so all of those memories just really like came back and just started flooding me, and I just thought, oh, I forgot about all of that kind of stuff, because those are not also like things that you just think about on a regular basis,
Right.
in your relationship, right? You don't take time to stop and be like, okay, why did I fall in love with this person? Most of the time we don't do that, right? And so I have a friend who is a very, very extremely intuitive, and she has a extremely strong connection with me. And 3 days after Doug died, when we were home, I got this phone call, and it had a Michigan number on it, and I didn't know anybody from Michigan. I have no idea who that was, right? And so this was like at 9:30 at night, and I pick up the phone and I was like, "Hello," and I heard her, and she was like, "Gwen," and I was like, "Erica." I go, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm at my mom's in Michigan," and she's like, "What happened? Something happened." And I said, "Doug died," and she said, "I knew it. I knew something was going on." And so we started talking or whatever. She said, I just need you to know that he is going to love you so hard from heaven, the way that he really wanted to love you while he was here on earth, but just wasn't capable of it. And I thought, how would you like know that? Right? Like, how would you know? And it's just been like the truth. And so that was like a moment too, where I just thought, it's okay to really like go back and like remember all of those like good things. And the stuff that he's like shown me, you have to be a believer in signs and stuff or whatever. But right, the stuff that he has shown me from heaven is so incredible.
Can you share one? What one of them? Just one of them.
Stories after stories. Well, he visits me in like dreams like a lot, and so probably like maybe like 5 days, maybe like 4 or 5 days after he was gone, like I had like this, like this vivid dream of him. But he was like in this tank, like these army tanks. I don't know anything about the army or whatever, but so he came. All these army tanks came into our yard, and he jumped off this army tank. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, you're back. I like run out. I said, oh my God, you're back. And he kissed my forehead. He said, no, I'm just passing through. And off he went. Right. And so he like did this whole thing. There was a time where our water thing downstairs in our basement, whatever was kept like the pump or whatever, like could not like shut off or whatever. And I would be like, oh my gosh, like, I just need you to shut this off. And so in my dream, I like hear this like rustling downstairs. Right. And I thought, what the heck is that? And here come Doug, like walking up the stairs, whatever, and fix this stuff. Right. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. After though he passed away, like I said, we were in the middle of this polar vortex. Okay. Bees don't live in the winter. Right. And so bees,
most of the time, no.
Right. This bee came to our house. And
this is awake or the dream.
This is a real thing.
Okay.
And so this bee came into so I write all this stuff down. Like I have like all these things all these stuff that like happened to us. And so this bee came and I thought, well, that's kind of strange. Like, what would that be doing here? Right. And then another one came, right? Like the next day. And I thought, this is something. And so we looked this up. And so there's this whole like tale, right? That like, bees are messengers to heaven. And so they will like deliver messages. Right. And so if a bee shows up after somebody like passes away, that means that they've crossed over. And so, you know how like a lot of people like see cardinals and all of that kind of stuff. We get the signs in these bees. And my plan is like on my TikTok page is to, now that we're at the 5-year mark, I'm just going to be really like more like sharing probably daily of the stuff that I've like written. Cause was very, very, very open, like very open with our whole community and on Facebook. Right. Like, and I don't know if Facebook is still like a really cool thing or whatever, but at one point it was. And so, like very open about my feelings, the things that were happening and about the bees. And so, every person in our community knows all about them, but they've also got to witness it.
Oh, wow.
So, when Olivia was having her senior prom, I said to Doug, you better show up. Like, you better freaking show up there, right? Like, you're going to be there for her and you're going to show up. And that night before, I'm like, sleeping and I'm running and I'm chasing after this thing. And now I thought that I was looking for Olivia in the dream. And I thought, no, that's not what I'm looking for. And I knew that he was there. And so our prom ends up always being on this boat and it's down by this river. Whatever, that's where we have prom. And I get to him and he's all like, cause he's like an angel, right? Or whatever. But he did say this to me in the dream. He goes, look what I can do. And he tightens up and he could turn himself into this form and I could actually touch him in that dream. Right. And so I could hold on to him because normally I could hug him, right? He could touch me, but I never could do that. And so it's just incredible. Anyways, the next day we go to prom. This is now real life, right? So the next day we go to prom and I'm waiting for him to show up. Right. And Olivia is standing there and she looks at her corsage and I knew what happened. And so here comes this bee and lands in her corsage. And she said, Mom, he's here. And the bee stayed there the whole time that she's out there taking pictures. Now, the kids who are around her also like understand the whole bigness of this, right? And parents too. There are parents who are out there crying that because the bee like came, because bees don't, it was April. And this one boy said, there are not insects yet. Insects are not here yet in Wisconsin.
Right? Oh no, it's frozen.
Right? So here comes this bee, and it's just stayed there the whole entire time, right? And so that's just the stuff, right? I mean, and I think that there's just other things that like happen. Like one time I had to go get a windshield wiper. It cost me $40. I mean, I don't have this extra money. Somebody then came here, and all of a sudden $40 just gets dropped off. I mean, that's him, right? I mean, that's the universe, right? That's just him working through like, I'm taking care of you, girl. I'm just taking care of you. And so it's just amazing. There's like so many like beautiful moments that come out of loss if you really are just noticeable, right? You have to be open to it and like see that, because I mean, loss is awful, but I mean, think about how many people, and hopefully you're lucky to have, you know, a community that is going to surround you, and you have people. I mean, and I lucked out in that department, I guess. Right.
And but that is really important as you talk about people, community. If I hear you saying that correctly, having community has been a large part of you being able to continue living.
Correct. We just really, I didn't cook for 2 weeks, right? Because everybody just fed us, you know, I mean, so they did like a meal train. And so, you know, all of the casseroles and everything come, right? And so we didn't make a meal at all. And I then had to say, like, could you please feed my sister's family too? Because they also are like suffering this loss, right? My nieces lost their uncle, and my brother-in-law lost his brother, right? And my sister is also grieving, right? And so they were like, sure. So they just doubled up on, you know, I mean, they just took care of us, right? I mean, they just really took care of us. Like our local restaurant, there's a restaurant here that I super love. They were like, we're just going to feed you. One time I just like had said like, you know, gosh, to myself, right? Like, gosh, I just would really love like a CSA. So we have like, you know, we live in this little farming community. And so CSAs are like, you know, farmers like grow the food, and then you can yeah. And so all of a sudden the local farmer like came in and they said, Gwen, we're going to gift you this CSA. And I was like, what? Right. I just said this like by myself, like in the car, like 10 minutes ago. Wow. Right. And she's like, we're gifting you this. And so I got free, like farm fresh, everything. Yeah. For a whole entire year.
Wow.
Right. That fed our family. And so I mean, it just was like so incredible. You know, they like somebody started a GoFundMe for us, right? Because we didn't have life insurance. I mean, we were young. It's not something that you think of. You totally didn't. I didn't think of that. We didn't think of that. Doug was 50 years old, right? I mean, I wasn't even 50. And so I wasn't even 50 years old. You know, when
life happens quickly.
And it doesn't matter how old you are, right?
At all.
Yeah.
In 5 years, does it feel like 5 years?
It feels like, when you say 5 years, right, it seems like such a long time. And then it doesn't seem like a long time at all, because I could talk about the things. I mean, it feels like it was yesterday, but not that pain, right? The pain doesn't feel like that. And so thankfully that lessens, right? Thank God that goes away. Did I cry this morning? Yep. I sat in the car. I call them parking lot cries, right? Where I'm like, all of a sudden, like stuck in my van and I can't get out, and I'm just in a parking lot and I'm just crying. And so I did that this morning. Not for a long time. And it wasn't like one of those like super extremely like hard sobs, right? But it was tears that I shed for him, probably for myself, right? Because there's still like moments where you feel sorry for yourself, or you think like, gosh, I can't believe this happened to us. And why did this happen to us?
Right.
And so, but throughout the day today, I felt pretty good. I have also given myself enough grace, to know that I have to take care of myself, and that I'm worthy enough to like, if I need to have the moments, I'm going to take the moments, right? I'm not going to like stifle them. If the tears need to come, they're going to just come. I've given myself a lot of permission to do that. And I've given myself, my girls, that permission, right? Like if you are having to like take a moment, you just take that moment, right? And so, example, Olivia was on a basketball court one time, and it probably was, I don't know, she was a freshman maybe, and she was playing in a varsity game, and it was around the time I was on an anniversary date, and all of a sudden she was out there, and I don't know if his presence was like so big, and she just said, I got to come off. And her coach like recognized. And so all of us, right? Like, I mean, I was like very open, right? Like with their coaches and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, and they all knew, and so he just, said, come on. And she just sat on the bench and she just cried, right? But I watched her. I mean, and it wasn't like a sob like you got hurt. It was that like deep sob of like, oh my gosh, I need him here. And so, right, I just went down to her and just said, you just need a moment. And she said, I just need a moment, Mom. I don't know, right? I just needed a moment. But brave in front of the whole entire school, in front of your peers, in front of everybody, to just pull yourself off and say, I just need this moment because I know I'm not going to be able to do this. Gather yourself back up, right? And I said, you can do this, right? You're going to take your power back right now. And your dad is here and you're going to be able to go out there. And then she just went out there and you could watch her just like seriously, like a phoenix, right? I mean, she just like would rise, right? And then she just killed it, and so it was those moments, but I wanted to make sure that my girls like knew that they have every right and every permission to take care of themselves that way. If you're sitting in class and you can't be in there, you're just, life is way bigger than having to, life is way bigger. And so that's what we're doing. 5 years, does it feel like that? It does. And then it doesn't. And so 5 years of having to do this stuff is a long time by yourself. And I'm tired, right? I mean, I'm tired. There's a lot of things that you take care of, but financially, I have to do it all. Right. And so right now when it's winter here and in our store and things are like really extremely slow, if we don't have sales, I don't have any money. Right. And so it's that kind of stuff. Doug and I weren't married, so I don't get spousal, I don't get spousal support. Okay. Right. So there's that comes along with it. Right. So you don't get that. Like I said, we didn't have, the life insurance and things like that. But somehow we just manage, right? Or we just manage. I have 3 girls who are in college, and we're all just figuring it out, right? And so Morgan is now a freshman in high school. And, 5 years of making decisions all on my own. I think that's been like one of the hardest things. I don't have anybody to like bounce things off of. And so then I feel like I try to like bounce things off of everybody. Right? Like, okay. Hey, what do you think? Right? Like, what would you do in this situation? And do you think I'm making the right choice? And this and this and this. And so in 5 years, I've had to really learn to trust myself, which if you want to like look at like blessings that come from death or whatever, I mean, that could be a blessing, right? Like the good things that come out of death. I have to trust my intuition. I have to trust myself. I have to know that this is like the truth. I have to be good in the decisions that I've made because they're the decision. I mean, this is what I've done, right? This is it. I hate small talk with people, right?
Oh, that's okay.
It's like a very like annoyance to me. I like meaty, right? Only because something meaty like happened to me, right? And so
it does change the dynamics of what's important and what's not. You have ability to say no and things that you would have said maybe yes to before.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And you also talked about how you talk with Doug now. You started with that, but I wanted to share your journey. Can you go back to that now that there's a perspective of it?
Yeah, I just think like I feel like I know that he probably he knows like everything. He knows everything probably that's going on. But I will literally just get in the car. And sometimes, like we're driving for sports. I sometimes have to drive for like an hour and a half, right? To get my daughter to like a sports thing or whatever. And so, and sometimes I'm by myself driving. And so I just will talk to him. I just be like, oh my gosh, did you even like see what that happened like today? Right? Like I just pretend I'm like having this conversation. And if people saw me, they'd be like, what is that girl? That is crazy.
She's talking on the phone in her ear. That's what's going on.
That's what I kind of do or whatever. Or, I mean, and I shouldn't say like, it's not like all the time that I do that, but I will ask him. I'll ask him for things like, if I have a big decision that's coming up or something that's like really important, I'll say things to him like, I just need you to please just come, right? Like, I just need you to be here with us, right? Like, I need you to show up and I need you to be here with us. And I need you to tell me like somehow if this is like the right choice, right? Like if this is the thing. And so through all of those stuff, and like I said, I'm like very observant of things. And so the very first time that I ever asked Doug to be somewhere with us was Olivia used to play softball, and Doug was her like first base coach, right? And so like when I say that they had a connection, I mean it was like they had a connection, and it was so hard for her to go back out onto that field. Harder for her than it was for basketball for whatever reason. And so we had to make some big decisions, and she had to do those all on her own. And so we had to like talk through a lot of stuff. And so she decided to not play softball anymore. And she was just going to focus on the basketball and things like that, which is fine. But before we went to one of these games, I said to him, like, I need you to be here. We're making some decisions and this girl needs you and I need you to be here. And so you got to show me something. Right. And so I'm walking down the side all of a sudden I seen this shiny thing and I thought, what the heck is that? And there's this dime, like there's this super shiny dime, like sitting right in front of me. Now I've heard other people say like dimes are like money from heaven. Right. And always like people like say like pennies from heaven or whatever, but dimes are like a thing that like show up for people. Okay. So this dime showed up and I thought, okay, I think that's you, right? Because you also can get this feeling, right? Like you just get this feeling inside you. And I thought, okay, this is you. And so I just like kept this dime. And so for a long time I had this I like every single time, like the money would show up. Okay. I'm not even kidding you, Tina. I have like countless and countless and countless like stories.
Wow. You have shared none of this. I'm over here like
because people think that it's like crazy.
Okay, we're going to pause. If you have not been on the road you have been, shut your mouth. I'm just going to say that. For somebody that's listening and you're thinking, I haven't lost a loved one. I'm listening to this conversation. Let people be where they're at in that space. I can't tell you how to run an antique store because what? Right. I have never run an antique store. And if you're a widow or a widow and go, well, I'm a widow, I can talk about that. Are you Gwen or Doug? No, I cannot tell you how to be Doug's widow. I can give advice from the perspective of being a grief coach from my life and other people. But at the end, I have to leave it in your space for you to decide what pieces you want to pluck out of what I share or not. But this is your journey. And if someone's listening and feeling like it's crazy, wait till your spouse dies. And let me come back to me then. All your wisdom now, if you have not broached this road, what you may have thought may have been one thing, may be something else. And I'll just leave it at that. Do not feel like you have to validate it or what it is. This is your life and this is your journey, and what you thought it was going to look like and what it is now is so very different.
It is. Well, and that is just the truth right there too, right? Like I, before this happened to me, I mean, I like knew people who like lost people, right? And like lost their spouse. And I would be like, wow, are they like overreacting? I mean, cause you don't even like know, like you don't even know. And now I think like, Jesus, that was like, they were not even nothing. That was like nothing compared to like what I,
exactly.
Yes. And so now I know, right? Like, cause you don't know until you know. And And so I use this experience in everything. I mean,
Okay.
really, like in everything. Because how, like you said, like I don't know how to run an antique store or whatever. And so now I am don't pass judgment. I can't pass judgment on anybody because I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes. I don't know that situation and I don't know that. Right. And so you don't know what you don't know.
It
And
did. Yeah.
before when I would like think about, people, I'd be like, gosh, well, it's been 6 months. Why is she, or, whatever. Or for like, the people who are like, think that it's like people who are like dating too fast or whatever, right? Like whatever, who cares? It's not up to you. It's not up to you to like, make the choices and the decisions for other people. And so, yeah, I do have a lot of stories about like how he shows up. I take like a ton of pictures of all of the time that like dimes like present to us. Like we were bringing Hannah and Haley down to college and I got into my brother-in-law's truck because he was driving us. We were all going down there and I looked in the cup holder and it was filled. There probably was, I don't even know, 50 dimes in there. And I was like, oh, that's Doug, right? Like, I mean, and it's just like those kind of things. We went prom dress shopping and get out of the car. We come to the car to get into it. And all of us look at the seat and here's these like dimes like sprinkled on our car seat. They were not there, right? And they go, look, Mom, like Dad was here with us. Right. And so they all know like the beach come, the dimes. And so it's pretty incredible. I mean, he's like loud. He's like loud about it. Like he is here with us all the time. And so I feel very safe.
Okay.
I feel very safe. And so when I do like need things, and like I said, when I do need things and I need a little bit of like clarity on stuff, or I just ask him. And so he just usually shows up. And it's really incredible. I was part of a book, and so it was like
anthology.
Like a co-author of like a book about like a local friend of mine here. She had lost her mom on her honeymoon. When she was on her honeymoon, she was getting ready to board the ship. And they got on there and they were actually like leaving, right? And so she got a phone call to say that her mom had passed away and she couldn't leave because they were at sea, right? She couldn't leave. And so she was there. And so then all of the stuff like started happening, right? And so where she was like, I think that was my mom, right? Like, stuff would like come. And so signs. So anyways, she had written this book and did all of this research by other people. And so I was a part of that book. And so
the title of the book is?
I don't even know what it is called right now.
Okay, so we're gonna scratch that part, podcast.
Yeah,
so you were part of a book, and what was that experience like being part of a book for you?
It really was. It really helped me. Obviously, like be a part of something, but also like I didn't feel alone in all of these things that were like happening because it was happening to other people. Right. And so through that too, I don't know if like after you lost your husband, if you like chased after things at all to like find out, like I was all of a sudden like, I don't want to say like obsessed, but I was like, let's just say I was obsessed. I was obsessed with death. Like I was like,
let me answer. Yes. I needed to understand from my perspective of what my beliefs were, what happened after your body left this world. Mark was cremated. I had to watch a video on the process before I would allow them to do it. I needed to know what the statistics were of how many people died per day. I would wake up every day and go, oh, I won the life lottery. Look at this. Here I am, still alive. Mark dying ripped the fear, anxiety, stress of everything about death. I just needed to understand it more, and I embraced it because it was like, yeah, this is really going to happen. Like, it off to the side, like those other people or different stuff. But when Mark died, both my parents were still living, all of my siblings. Death was not something that was close to me as it was when he died. So it changed the dynamics of everything. It changes the level of passion that I have when I show up. I mean, Widowhood Real Talk with Tina is an entire 501c3 nonprofit to support people who are grieving, because unlike you and myself, there are people doing this that have zero community. There are
Mm-hmm.
people that are doing this and feel totally alone. And I'm actually going to take this jump into, if you want to talk about things that you want to do for widows and have
Oh,
that
yeah.
conversation. I want to just, as I'm talking, I want to give you space for that.
Sure. Here's, can you see that? Here's that book. Here's the book, Sacred Hellos. I just looked it up. I was like, I can't remember what the heck the book was called. Sacred Hellos, Messages from Heaven is what it is called. And so, anyways, it was fun. It was a fun little thing. I just got to share some stories. And so Noelle just, put them in there. And so I was appreciative of her, thinking about me. So Noelle, the gal who wrote the book, her and I were doing some stuff here in our community, and it was called The Path Forward. And so we did put on a seminar, like a grief seminar for a day. And then we had like some specialists come in, like therapists and things. And so we like had a nutritionist come in and talk to us about like what actually happens to your body, like when you're going through grief. And these are tips for you to, on how to eat, better and, know that like, if you can't sleep at night, then just get up, right? Like don't force your body to try and like sleep, right? Because your body is going to do all of this stuff. Here is like one thing that happened to me, like after Doug died, everybody's bringing you the food and everybody's doing all of that, and wanting to take care of you that way and doing that. I had one gal who said, listen, this is what's going to happen to you. Right. And so your body is going to be so tired, right? Because grief is going to exhaust you.
It does.
And so and so she worked for like this homeopathic, so she had like all of these like supplements kind of things. And so she said, I'm going to send you these, and this is what I want you to do. And you're going to take this at this time because your endocrine system and everything is just going to go like berserko, right? And so she supplied me with this very expensive, like, all these like top vitamins or whatever. So like that. So they're vitamins, but they're like, where you're paying like whatever, $70 for this bottle.
Oh, wow.
Anyways, the money part of it, whatever, didn't matter. But for the fact that it was the one person who thought about what's really going to physically happen to me and mentally, right?
Yes.
And so she took care of that part. And I was so appreciative of that. And she was saying, like, it's totally fine, like, for you to like eat that pan of brownies, but I now also want you to like eat a whole entire tub of strawberries, right? Like do that, and make sure that you drink the water, and make sure that you take a nap when you need to, and don't think that you have to like be doing all of these things, right? And so I was grieving and trying to make sure that my girls were, taken care of, and that they were grieving at the same time, and doing their own thing, because we're all going to grieve at different levels, right? And I remember one time I had like the actual, like I call it like the grief breakthrough. Okay. And so I woke up in the morning, and it maybe was like a week and a half, 2 weeks after Doug died. We had like such cold weather and stuff here, right? And my girls were off of school. And so we had a couple of days where because it was like so cold, right? So they had school. So I was so like thankful for the weather too, because we just had this extra time. We just
you have to be rushing them and doing all the
right.
other stuff.
Yes, we were not like doing any of that. But I had this moment. I woke up in the morning and I thought, oh gosh, there's something like happening to me today, and this is not going to be good. This is not going to be a good day. I did not hide from my girls at all, like crying. I didn't hide that, because I wanted them to know that I was sad, and that it was okay to be sad, right?
Yes.
But this, whatever was about to happen to me, they were not going to be able to see this, right? And so I called my sister and said, you have to come and you have to get my girls, because I don't really know what's happening to me at this moment, but this is not going to be good, right?
Okay.
And so she said, okay, right? So she came and got my girls. I was in my bed, like I literally like could not get out of my bed, but I was in my bed with the most intense emotional pain that I have ever experienced, right? Ever experienced. And so I think that was like, I was like screaming. I mean, it was like so primal on this day, and just like so crying and so primal. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. I am dying today. I am dying with him, and this is it. And my kids are going to not have any parents, because I thought that that's really like what was happening to me. And all of a sudden, I just was like so exhausted, passed right out. I mean, like I just passed out. I had no control. I had no control, right? And so I just thought, you were just giving up, girl. You were just giving into this, and you were just letting this happen. After that, it was like I was so cleansed.
Yes.
And I just had this like renewed like energy thing, right? It happened to Olivia. And she called me from upstairs, like literally on her phone. And she said, "Oh my God, Mom, I don't what something is like happening to me. I don't even know what is happening." And so I said, "Get downstairs," right? And so I got her downstairs, and I was so excited for her, right? I was so excited because I said, "Oh my gosh, you're having like the grief breakthrough." And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Olivia, you're gonna be like, it's gonna be so scary." I was like this. I was like, "It's gonna be so scary."
Oh yeah, excited, Mom.
I know, right? And so I was like, "It's gonna be so scary. It's probably gonna be so painful." But I was like, "I want you to know that you're not gonna break. Okay, you're not gonna break, and you're not gonna die, and you're gonna be just fine." I said, "And I'm here for you." And she goes, "This is what she says to me." She goes, "Oh my God, Mom, you were like an effing freak," right? And so I said, "I know, Olivia." I said, "But this is really like what is supposed to be happening to you." And so I said, "Here's all the Kleenex, and here's all the water, and here, like whatever you need to do, like scream if you need to," right? I said, "Because tomorrow," I said, "you're going to be so like renewed," right?
Yes.
And that's exactly what happened to her. And all of a sudden, we both were just so much lighter, right?
Yes.
Olivia and I had formed this relationship. I was afraid because Doug had her all the time, right? Like I was afraid of what this relationship was going to be like. And we both just were experiencing these things kind of at the same time. And we just both like helped each other through.
Wow.
And so, for your part where you were talking about what you're doing, I have had this passion. And I just don't really know how to get there, right? I think that that's just it. And maybe it just is not the time yet, but it's there, right? Like it's there. And then maybe I'm not supposed to do it until Morgan is gone from our home.
Okay.
Right? And that might be it. And I'm not really sure on that, but I would really like to, I have this thing that's called the House of Girls. And so because, it's me and the girls, but I wanted to do like this retreat area for widows. And so we have this beautiful, beautiful property. Like we have this big creek that runs through 20 acres, and it's, got trees, and it's swans come, and these big cranes come, and all of the ducks come, and it just is magical. And so Doug and I used to walk it all the time, and it just has this spirit about it that it's incredible. And there's a couple spots out there that every time I get to, I can't do anything but cry. And I don't know what is out there. I mean, I don't know what is in that little spot, right? But it just releases something in me. And so when we were kids, we used to walk it all the time. And I would say to him, like, someday we need to use this property for something like really incredible. And he would always say to me, "Someday you will."
Oh.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, that's what's going to happen. And so I would really like to, those big bell tents, they're like those big canvas bell tents. I do have one that a widow friend of mine actually gifted to me. So another gal who is a widow, and by freak of thing, I mean, like seriously, her and I were in this like business class on Facebook.
Okay.
I had no idea who she was. I didn't know who she was. She didn't know who I was. We were talking, and we got split up in these groups. And I was like, "You live in Milltown?" Which is really just like a half an hour away from where I live. Right.
Okay.
And so we formed this relationship online. And then her husband was in this freak 4-wheeler accident. And he died. And I still didn't know her, but we were in our town here, and I was walking into another business, and she was coming out, and I was like, "Are you Jackie?" And she's like,
"Oh, like the first time meeting, like for real." Okay.
And she's like, "Are you Gwen?" And I said, "I am." And we sat out on this bench, and we talked for like 2 hours just about everything. And so now I had just lost Doug. I mean, and so it was all like so close. It just was like all like supposed to be. Right. And so anyways, I got this tent like gifted to me to be the very first thing for like people to come. And so my idea is to just have these big bell tents just kind of like placed down the creek bed, and people can come and they're just going to sit in there and they're just going to be able to breathe and release, right?
Okay.
And so that's all I've really wanted, is to just have quiet and to just have a place where I could like meditate and release and to let go and to just know that I'm like surrounded by people who are in the same thing in safety. I envision this whole big, huge, long like harvest table, right? We're all just around sharing a meal. I would love to have this smash house where you're like, you get to break all of the broken china that's in my shop, right? And so you could just let out some anger, right? And so there could be cold bathing and saunas. You know, I just want to like put it all in there, like this whole like spiritual kind of like release camp for widows. And so that's my idea. And then along with that, after Doug died, Olivia had made these T-shirts that are called that, and on there they said "We Are One." Her and my brother-in-law did that, and so it has Doug's heartbeat on there, and then there was these angel wings and a cross, and so we all had those after Doug died, and we give scholarships out in his name, and so we do this little fundraiser. A friend of ours actually put on this pool tournament fundraiser. Doug used to play billiards all the time, and so we had our scholarships for kids to go to college in Doug's name. And so anyways, I would like to start a We Are One Foundation, which will be more fundraising, and then it will be able to help widows and single moms. And so if you have a house project, I can help you take care of that. Right. So for me, I've had all like my deck, like listen, like
you have become the handy woman that Doug was.
Yeah, I am not handy though. I mean, I am a little bit like I've had to like do things on my own. Like the other day, I've had to do like some plumbing and stuff. I mean, I've had to do some things. I've had to figure out stuff, you know, with our washing machine. I mean, I've had to like change numerous tires, you know. I have a deck that's falling off our house though. I don't know how to do that kind of stuff, right? And then to financially, you know, pay for that. I mean, I have a single mom of 4 kids, right? I mean, money is not, I mean, that's the last thing, right? Like I have to feed us.
Just don't go on that deck. We got other stuff we got to do.
Right. Exactly. Right. And so like I said, I need to have trim work put up. And so, I have a really great group of like guy friends who would be like super like helpful. Right. So I would like to just, you know, have this foundation. Somebody needs something taken care of. I can pay them. They can go, they could do it. That widow doesn't have to worry about it.
The safety, who the people are, the money, because that is what it is. Sometimes it's just, I need these pictures up. I need something small move. When you now have to be already exhausted from grief and then just trying to do minimal tasks can seem overwhelming.
Right. You're having to try to like mow your lawn. You have to do all of the things. I mean, maybe like some widows have babies, right? Like who has time to like, you're trying to like grieve and take care of a baby. And like, I mean, think about if you're like trying to like nurse a baby and your body is now like in this whole like grieving thing and you're now not able to do that. And the guilt, oh gosh. I mean, like how exhausting, right? It's so exhausting. And so I would just like to be able to provide a little bit of something and a little bit of ease.
Take the pressure off. Yep.
Correct. Right. Because that's what I would have liked. I mean, and I got that, but there's still you know, like
there's still another level you could do. And that's what I think we're doing. We're learning from our experience and paying it forward to other people. Excellent.
Yes. And I think that that's the purposeful part, right? Like I was like, I'm going to live a purposeful life. Right. And so he taught me like how to be a better human. And I just would like to continue to honor him until I leave this earth.
I think
whether I get another relationship in whatever, right? I mean, I would like to, I mean, that's just how it's going to be.
Okay. So, nice. I have asked you a ton of questions. Thank you for this conversation. I'll flip it around a little bit. Any questions that you have of me?
I just always like talk all the time. Yes. So I do. Like how long have you been widowed?
Mark died in March of 2017.
Okay, so not long either.
I'm going on 7 years.
7 years, yeah. So that's not long, right? And so I just know through your TikToks and stuff that you guys were on vacation.
Yes.
Yes, and so How did that even look? How did that look for you? Like were you in a strange area? Like, did you know where you were at? I mean,
So I was living in Virginia. I'm sorry, I was living in Pennsylvania. Mark was living in Virginia. The goal was our goal was to relocate back here to Virginia. He obtained a job first. So we got him a 1-bedroom apartment here locally. And I really felt like God was leading me for us to connect that weekend. And I was thinking, I don't want to drive all the way down to Virginia. I'll see him Easter weekend. That was my thought process. But I just felt an immense amount of pushing to get together. And so we met on a military base in Delaware, which was about 2.5 hours from where we both were. And we went out that first night, went out to eat, and then we went to the movies and came back. He had been complaining of gas and pressure. And the next day he went to get breakfast on base where we were staying. There was a golf course and they had food there. Came back, he took a nap, and he was feeling very hot, a lot of sweating. I asked to go to the emergency room. What do guys say? No, I don't want to go. And I didn't want to be a nag. We had had such a great weekend. We got lost, didn't argue about it, different things. It was just like, I'm not going to be a nag. I'm not going to have this weekend. And I told you, I was like, nope, if he grown, he don't want to go. I'm not going to do anything. And he had a heart attack in the hotel room when we were there together. And I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like, I know where I'm at, but I don't have concept of what's around me. So I called to the front desk and I asked them, and I frantically tell them what's going on. The medical people that come are military, so they have weapons and other stuff. And I'm saying, I'm Chief Warrant Officer, I can stay here. I'm at the end of the hallway losing my whole mind. They try to revive him. He wouldn't respond. They take him to a medical facility and they give me an address. I'm like, who's doing that? I mean, either one of y'all get in the car or show me. I don't know where I'm at. Do you understand what's going on? And so they take me there. And like yourself, I'm in the hospital and they say, come in this room. And I was like, it's never good when they put you in a room by yourself in the movies. This is not a good look at all. I mean, I'm going, this is not what happens. And the doctor comes in and I'm trying to find like a sheet of paper or something to write. And they're talking. I was like, this is not good in the movies. This is not good in the movies. And he says, your husband has had a massive heart attack. And I'm like, define massive. And I want to say it was something like 60 to 75% of his heart was gone. And I was like, and when I was sitting on the bed in the hotel and I just heard a thud and I thought Mark had slipped on his sweat. But now thinking back, if 60 to 75% of your heart is not pumping blood, there's nothing for the body to stand. And so that was logical to me. And I just asked them, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to take off work for weeks. I'm going to nurse him back to health. And the doctor said, we're going to see if he makes it through the night. And I was like, oh. I was like, do I tell my kids? He said, absolutely. You need to get your children here immediately. My son was in the Navy. So my sister, who's retired senior chief, had to put Red Cross message in, do all that. My daughter was in Pennsylvania. And I got a family friend to bring her down. She didn't know exactly what. By the time my daughter got there, he had died.
Oh, gosh.
And I am extremely grateful for the medical professionals because when Mark died, they let me be in that room and they let me lose my whole mind. They didn't say, oh, stop right away. I was screaming. It was horrific. It was the worst moment of my life. I crawled up on that bed with his body and I was touching his head. And I remember touching his hands and going, his hands are cold. Like those were the hands that were just around me the night before. But when you think about how far that is from the heart that's not pumping, and I was just like, he is dead. Like,
yes.
Like, this is where our story ends. Like, wow. Like, just leaning into that. I remember connecting with every person I knew that was a widow. I started going through my phone, like every person I knew that had lost a spouse, I was calling them and asked them, like, how you do this? Like, how does, I mean, past the funeral, past the funeral, I'm like, how do you like get back in your bed? How do you not slap somebody? How do you do this? Like every day? And I'm like, ooh wee, you made it through the first year. I'm like, but he's still dead though. You know, like I'm not quite sure what we're excited about that we made it through the first year because he don't come back. Like,
right?
Still, and just I mean, for me, it was therapy. It was the thing when you said you couldn't go to sleep at night. I had the elliptical machine that I moved it into the front room because if I couldn't sleep, then I was going to be on the elliptical machine watching TV. Some of my siblings were on the West Coast, so I would talk to them at all hours of the night because I couldn't sleep. And it was just like, wow, I did till death do you part. I mean, you say that standing there, but you're never like, for real.
I know you don't. Yeah, you don't think that that's actually going to come to you, right? Until you're 90. I mean, really, until you're old. You're supposed to be with the person until you're old. You either divorce them or you're supposed to be with them until they're old, right? I mean, that's just how it's supposed to be. And
right. So it has been that process of finding a candid, safe space to just be. My mom was still married to my dad. There wasn't like I was going to go ask her, like, how's this go? I'm going, how are they alive and he's dead? I remember just thinking like,
I know.
I wasn't trying to wish them dead, but it just seemed out of order in my mind. And it just has been connecting with other people and being able to have this conversation and giving people space to have this discussion. Because I remember searching the internet looking for information. I can see when someone joins the YouTube channel at 2:00 in the morning, I'm going, yeah, I know what that looks like. And so now being in this space, I mean, I leaned into my mental health like it was a war because I was afraid of being in this place in my mind that I thought that I was going to be stuck in this moment of time, that grief fog, that concept and all that. And I had to fight for my own mental health to not be stuck. And that was the therapist, that was the journaling, that was working out. That was all those things that I had to save Tina because my children were grown. They were kind of living their own life, which was something that kind of pissed me off. I'm like, he didn't die. They both grown and I'm in this house by myself. Not the plan. So I was like, I have to figure out what life looked like. And my middle sister had relocated from California to Virginia. And she spent a lot of hours going up to Pennsylvania, helping me clean out the house, helping me do different things. We now live next door to each other. She is a board member on Widowhood Real Talk with Tina and a very instrumental part of us showing up for other people in this space that is so very difficult because not only is it difficult, but imagine having no tribe. Imagine having nobody to talk to and feeling muted and alone. Imagine that a year has passed and everybody's going, you still upset about that? And it's like that. And so now I am the grief share leader for my church. We're looking this year doing scholarships. We're looking next year to have a grief garden and a grief cafe. It is.
I love that.
And be able to just be with people in a difficult process. And that's
it's so important. Yeah, it's so important. Well, because here in our culture, right? Like in our culture here, we don't even like really like want to like celebrate death. I mean, like, right? Like when you think about like other cultures and stuff, I mean, they have like big parties, right? They're like excited, like, woohoo, you're like going to the other side, right? Like, yes, you've like made it. I mean, really, when you think about it, and so this is something that kind of like helps me get through is that when they talk about like, you know, he just went home, that's where we all came from, right? I mean, we came from there. And so that's what we're all That's what you're supposed to be doing here on earth anyways, right? We're all just supposed to be trying to walk each other home. And you're supposed to be trying to get there and do your best possible humaning,
Yes.
right? While you're here and living purposefully and doing right and good by others, right? And you're just walking everybody home. And so for me, like there's part of me finally, I mean, it's taken, 5 years, to really get that to just sink in there. And I'd be like, Doug's there, right? I mean, he's there. Like, that's it. I don't fear death anymore, right? Because I know I'm going to be there. I'm going to see him at some point. It is painful. He sucks for sure, right? And so I had a hard, I couldn't find any grief groups that I really liked, right? Because everyone around here was, first of all, either too religious based, and I didn't really like that, or like this weird like by the book thing. There was like this book that everybody was like, like reading out of this book, and I remember I went to one thing and I was like, who can't take a shower? Like who can't take a shower, right? And everybody was like, I can't barely like put my socks on, right? I mean, right? Like, who hasn't brushed their teeth today? Okay, tomorrow we're all going to get up and we're brushing our teeth. Okay, let's all make a pact that we're going to get up and we're going to at least like brush our teeth. We're going to drink like 1 cup of damn water, and this is what we're going to do, right? And so, that's where I like led to. Like, I wanted like real. I'm like more. I function
like
way better.
real talk, like we're doing the real talk.
I wanted like real talk. I wanted real stuff. I wanted to know that other people were feeling and doing this exact same thing. And I didn't want to be told that I'm in this like I'm this caterpillar. This is what one of them was. I'm like, you're this caterpillar. We're in this chrysalis, and at some point now we're like in the season of fall, and we're going to turn into this butterfly. And I was like, that is bullshit. Okay. Like, let me tell you, I can't open the mail because it gives me anxiety because bad things come in the mail. Okay. So like all of a sudden, like information was coming that I didn't want to like see or whatever. Right. And so I still sometimes like have this anxiety about the mail. Grief anxiety is real. Right.
Yes,
and so we've had, trauma in our house. And so now all of us seem to have this a little bit more anxiousness. I am super hyper vigilant on my children to be like, you better make sure that you're safe. Please, like, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Please do this thing because I don't want to ever feel this pain again. So that means you guys are not allowed to die, right? And so, which is so ridiculous.
But it isn't. That is real because death came your close. Yes, and it's reality. So now you know when people go, oh, we don't have tomorrow. No, you don't understand. Like you don't say that like it's a lullaby. That is for real. My daughter, super like that. When I go someplace, like right now, we've been on this conversation probably 2 hours. My phone is off. She probably is not happy with me. But so she is probably text Fred and he's going, your mom's doing a podcast, because after a while, it just doesn't work. And you need to be able to have a space because you're thinking, am I the only one that can't go back into the grocery store that we used to go in all the time? Am I the only one that when I drive around the corner, you guys have to walk in that space in the house where they saw Doug on the floor? How do you, all those things? Yeah, we're so past the pretense of a conversation. I need you to really talk it out with me.
Right. Which is why I'm like, so like, I mean, I'll be like a little bit small talky with people or whatever, but if you want to like you better give me something, right? Like I need some meaty something, right? Because otherwise that's just it. Right. So here, in our community, all of, right, like the widows, they'll gravitate towards you, right? And so I'm a hub center for downtown. And when people, there was a gal who she just lost her husband. I thought was like longer, but it's only been 4 months, 6 months maybe. Anyways, I've been waiting for her to come. And the other day she came into the store, right? And I always like say like, okay, you're not going to cry when you see them, right? You're not going to cry. You're going to hold it together for them. But we also, like, everybody knows each other here, right? And so she came into the store and she just stood at the door, and here come the tears from her. And then I just was like, screw it, right? And so then we just cry together, and I just hold her, right? And that's what we do. And she's like, when does it get better? And I was like, how far are, she's like 6 months. I go, oh girl, hang on, right? Like, you got to just hang on, because this is just new. Like, you're like still like in this little like honeymoon phase. I remember like after Doug died, right? In 2 weeks, I thought, I got this. Whew. Like, right? Like, well, this ain't hard. This ain't hard. Right? He's like on vacation. We're getting through. We're like good. We're good. We're like, my girls and I, we were like looking through pictures. We were doing the things. We were laughing about the stuff. We were like, rejoicing because the bees came and Doug's in heaven, right? We're doing all this thing. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, the shit show came, right?
Yes, so, it does. Mm-hmm. It does. And then nobody, you have to find people to talk about it. And that is why this conversation is essential. Because when somebody looks at it and go, okay, I want them to feel like they're the third person on the couch. Like, these are my people. They understand how I feel. I am not making it up. I'm not losing my mind. This is what grief looks like. Yeah, and you don't have to pretend it doesn't.
Right. That was like one of the biggest things for me, is to like find those people, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, that is so true. Right. Which is why, when you were saying too, like you were like looking up all the stuff, like I was chasing after the death thing. Like, right. Like but I also was like chasing after any kind of connection. I like talk to psychics. And I've like done all of that, but specifically like said to him, like, if she's going to be real, you're going to give me an answer. That girl is going to say something that you and I only know about. And that has happened. And so I go, oh yeah, that's real. That's totally real.
When you were at this, you chase things, like you said, you are chasing for an answer. Sometimes those things may chase to something good. Sometimes it may chase to something without any fruit. But that intense need to have an answer is strong. Right. You're trying to find peace. You're trying to find a way to deal with this. I know we have been talking for a while.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask, and I know you got to get home because you're at the shop. One, what is the name of your store?
It's called The Looking Glass in Osceola, Wisconsin.
Okay. And 2 final questions. What gives you joy right now in life?
Gosh, I feel like that there's like a lot of things that I think that I've been really just trying to find stuff like every day, like little things like every day. I'm not sure if there's exactly like one specific thing, Tina, that I find to be like super joyous. And I think I'm maybe still kind of looking for that. No, I shouldn't say that. So before Doug and I used to do a lot of things together, right? Like, and I used to paint furniture and I loved it, right? And I was a really good furniture painter, and I sold furniture and did that. And after Doug died, I have now not painted a piece of furniture at all, right?
It takes something out of you.
Yeah, I try to like get back to that or whatever and do that. But what I do find that does actually light me up though is through COVID, when COVID hit, I had to like figure out how I was going to keep my store open. And so I used to do these live sales, which I would get on Facebook and I would do lives, kind of like on Whatnot, right? To do lives. And so I'm going to start doing some of those, or not on Whatnot, on TikTok. So I'm going to start to do some of those, I think. I did that kind of stuff for like a year. So like you're doing like live sales, we're telling stories. I talk about Doug a lot on them. I talk about grief. I mean, even in my store, we just do that, right? So customers are my friends. And I sell stuff to people, and it's really fun. I mean, it's a really fun thing. And so I took a little bit of a break from it because I was tired, quite honestly, because I was tired. And I've now started, I've started back up with it. And I do realize that that is something that just like lights me up. And so that really thing is, so just like more of like a connection, I think, with people, on the other side, social media kind of stuff like that. And so the selling of, my goods here, And then just like moving forward with some different things here at the store. That really is like, making me excited. I have some big ideas of things that I would like to do at my house. I'm excited for that, so just dreaming. I'm now like allowed myself to like dream again. And so,
Ooh,
yeah.
yes.
And so, yeah, so that is bringing me some, anticipation, right? Like I like that. I am also, looking forward to, not that I'm looking forward to all my girls being gone, but Morgan is a freshman in high school. Soon she'll be in college. My other two will be done with college.
Okay.
Olivia will be finishing, and then I'm going to have my own life. Okay, it's going to just be my life, right? And so I'm looking forward to that. It really.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's bringing me some joy. So
nice. If you could pick any year, season of your life, what would you pick and what would you tell Gwen?
Oh my. If I could pick any season of my life, there's been a lot. Probably, oh gosh, I don't even know which one I would pick. When I was starting out with my kids, would I pick that season? When I was starting out with my kids, and I would say, I would tell Gwen that your choices are going to be fine, right? I would tell her that you are brave, right? Like you are brave. You're going to have to be braver than you've ever been, right? I didn't realize like what strength really was until now.
Okay.
Right? When people say like, "Oh, you're so strong," and you're kind of like, that is true, right? I'm strong and a warrior, right? Doug's death day didn't turn us into anything but warriors. That's what we call it. I call it it's our warrior. It's our day. It's the day we became warriors. And so me and all of my girls, except for Morgan, because she's not old enough, we all have the same tattoo, and it's like Doug's death.
Okay.
And I call that's the day we became warriors. And so I would just I'll probably just my younger self, Tina, I would just say like, you're going to be fine, right? Like, girl, you're fine. And so you're always just going to be fine. I just feel like life is good, right? Like even through all of it.
Yes.
Even through every single thing, right? Through like the bad relationships and a bad marriage and thinking that it was going to be the end and feeling like I was going to be broken time and time again, right?
Okay.
Like this is going to knock me down. You're going to be fine. Right? I'm excited to see like what the future holds.
Okay.
Because I think it's just going to be, like the best is yet to come, right? Which sounds so cliche, but it really is good. Good things are coming is what I think. And so, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thank you. I will let you have the final comments. Anything you want to say and close out this conversation? I
am just like so appreciative that you reached out to me. And so I just think that we're going to have like some good stuff like happening, and how grateful, like, oh my gosh, be proud of yourself too, right? Of everything that you're like doing and accomplishing, and death is hard, but look at how many people you're like helping. So that's purposeful, right? That's a good life, right? And so that's what I think I have to say on that. That's a good life. Thank you.
I am grateful for every conversation that I'm able to bring to you, because it means that someone extended their trust to me to share their story with the world. Conversations like this are so amazing. The real talk, when someone is watching Widowhood late at night, early in the morning, and you may be wondering if you're the only person that is having this type of grief journey, you know without a doubt, you are not alone. There are things that we talked about that I never knew about Gwen, things we never discussed. And I am so grateful for her transparency. And I invite you to consider sharing your journey here at Widowhood, or maybe suggest a topic or a conversation that I should have. Please email me at widowhoodrealtalk@gmail.com. Thank you for being here with me And I am sorry for the person that you have lost that has drawn you to this conversation. But I welcome you to be part of our hood. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.